What is up, everyone? We are back again with the Learning, Love and Wisdom podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Ping. I have a very special friend, special guest back on the show today. I'm so excited to have human behavior and self-mastery coach, Justin Wiseman, the Wise Man. He helps hundreds of people. He's been in the industry for years. When I have a question, when I got something going on, I hit up Justin. He's one of the top coaches in the industry. He helps people, if you have a dream or a big goal or a big vision, if you know there's fucking more, you go and work with Justin. He's going to map it out, get it all clear for you, help you get results, and he's going to hold you accountable. That's why I love Justin. He's no bullshit guy like me. So welcome back, Justin. Today we're going to be talking all about self-mastery. How are you feeling today?
Mitch. Yeah, good, man. How are you?
I'm fantastic. We've got all the tech issues sorted, so
well, we hope so.
Hopefully you're all listening and watching this. But
you might have to come back and do the original. Just drive to my house in Victoria. We'll do the original. We won't have tech issues that way, mate.
Bro, we'll find a way. We'll find a way. But what's been going on, man? How's self-mastery going?
Yeah, a lot's been going on, brother. A lot. So, like I mentioned to you before, just moved out of our old place. So just shifted house. So had to move in with mum and dad. There's a conversation we could start on. Oh, isn't he a fucking coach? Isn't he a self-mastery specialist? Well, yeah. So we could definitely talk about that conversation.
So what do you want to share about that? What's the story, the situation that you can share? Because I'm sure there's a reason behind it, or a goal, or a strategy, a method to your madness. So what's going on?
There's a little bit of both. It's definitely there's definitely like decisions that have been made to move back in this direction for a short period of time. But then there's also, I guess, life as well, man. So where do you want me to start?
Well, life.
So what happened was like we were living in this house and the owner decided to sell it. And so we made a decision. But basically, we sat down and I've got a decision optimizing tool that I use, and I sat down with my partner Sarah, and we looked at all the possible viable things that we could do from the situation that we found ourselves in, which was like requiring to either move out of the house or basically we'd been given the eviction notice, right? Well, not eviction notice, just that the owner wanted to sell. I suppose they're two different things. I don't know what you want to call it. And so we had to be out. And so we sat down and we looked at all the viable ways, no matter how fucking crazy you're out there they were. We just wrote them down on this list.
Nice.
And then we basically went through and we had a look at like what were the ones like on a rating of 1 to 10 that we were most inspired to do and the least inspired to do. And so the number one was actually to buy the property that we're in. So that had been a goal of ours, something that we were going to do, or we're looking to do and put an offer in on this property later in the year. And so that was our number one. So that came up as number one, and then we had move in with parents, so either Sarah or Danny and Sarah's parents or my parents, as like a couple of the second level ratings, as well as like find somewhere else to rent and live, etc. But they were obviously all down the list, and how we were making this decision ultimately was leading to the outcome of being able to get into a home to live in, so to buy and own a home. So not investment, but own and buy a home. And so we went down the track of the first option, which was to buy the property, which didn't pan out in our favour. So we put the offer in, we got accepted, we got to the final stages with the bankings, and basically we had a credit card payment that had been late in the last 6 months, and they said, come back in 4 months.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so that's how we found ourselves in this position. Right, so that was, all right, so we're 1 month in on that, so the property might still be freaking sale in a couple of months. So then we were like, okay, well, what are we going to do here? So we started applying for rentals, and we've applied for quite a lot of rentals actually, and our rental like we just didn't get anything basically. Now there's another lesson in this, Mitch, which I don't know if you want me to start to go down this path because, well, I will. I'll finish this story and then I'll lead into that if you like, and I'll just frame and share around it first. So then we started to go down that path and it wasn't panning out, but then obviously the end of our lease came up and so we had to make a decision on where we were going to go and how we were going to live because basically, really if we were going to stay in the property, we would have to deal with people coming through for inspections and all that shit and didn't want to deal with it. So we just made the decision to move with mum and dad. And obviously there's upsides to that as well, so like saving more money, all that sort of stuff as well, so putting more money aside and being able to distribute that stuff. So that's kind of like how we ended up in this position, but it was one of the options that we created based on our decision optimizers. Now a lot of people won't take or wouldn't take the time to look at those decisions and probably react on what they need to do. And a lot of people will go, well, dude, you're 37 and you moved back in with your parents. Well, now, I get it, because honestly, I never thought that would be something that I would be saying. But when it comes down to what we're trying to achieve, it's actually one of the best options for us in the short term. And so while it's got benefits and drawbacks and has, some challenges with it, it's also going to lead us to the greater outcome of one of our family goals. And so that's why we're here now. So hopefully only a short-term stay, if we can get somewhere to live, and then we'll get into a property in the next sort of 12 months. So that's how we sort of found ourselves here. But I think even on that, there's definitely a conversation that could be had, which isn't probably for this podcast, but a conversation that could be had about, I guess, the social environment that we're finding ourselves in now with the economy and all that sort of stuff, and what investors are doing in regards to jumping out of the investment property, selling up a lot, especially here in Victoria. So we've had a lot of, I think it's Australia-wide to be honest, but we've had a lot of investors getting out. So then there's been a lot of people who are renters getting pushed out. And so the rental market demand is super fucking high and there's not enough properties for people to get into. So, it's pretty crazy at the moment in regards to that side of the market. So we've just found ourselves here.
That's awesome, man. That just comes back to, because like you said, obviously there's a bit of stigma that might come with moving back in with your parents when you have your whole family with you, and there's a lot of challenges that come with that. And I think it's, thank you for sharing that. And I think it just goes to show, when you do have that big goal and a big vision, then you're willing to do the things that most, DeMartini says is the things that circulate the least have the most amount of value. The things that circulate the most have the least amount of value. So if you're willing to sort of go outside the box, you're going to achieve more than the average person, right? So that's awesome. You're willing. Well, yeah, that's a whole nother fucking podcast on like sacrifice or, but yeah. Go back to what you were saying, the lesson or something you can share.
Well, so today's podcast was about what we discussed. So we're going to talk about like the different areas of life, right? So I see this as a great lead into, I guess, self-mastery, but also finances, right? And money management and effective ways to manage your money. Not so much the investment side of it, but how you choose to set your money up and manage it. And so part of the consequence, right? Well, sorry, I'll go back. So I learned this money management strategy back in, we'll say 2015 I set it up, which was basically the I, we, and all, which obviously as well. You've learned some of this stuff as well. So it's basically about putting yourself first and paying yourself first in regards to your finances. So that would be your saving first, your savings first into your buffer in order to build a financial buffer, which then overflows into once you've hit a specific amount. So our first target was 3 months and we went to 6 months. But once we got to 6 months, we started overflowing, and then whatever we were saving started to go into investments, etc. So that was our goal. So I have been managing, or we have been managing our money since 2015 in that manner. So all our money that comes in, there is a percentage that always goes, and I mean always, doesn't matter how much it is that comes in, that always goes to us into savings and then overflows into investments. Now, part of the downside of that is that you still got to live, right? So it's when you first start to do this, and especially with the transitions that we've made over the last few years with starting another business, me stepping out on my own and leaving the role I was in, etc. So there's been some challenges and income, stretching of the income, let's just say, over the last few years. And so it doesn't matter what happens income side, you never break those principles or strategies, right? So you never break it. Because the goal is to ensure that you never have to go back to, I guess, relying on debt or relying on other people in regards to how you look after yourself. So, like, if you have a look at the situation I find myself, or we found ourselves in now, like, there's no stress for us, right? Whether we have to go out and then, as an example, would be go, oh, well, we'll pay 3 months rent up front. Right, we could do that easily and not have any stress about it, and that would probably put us in a position to get a property in front of everyone else. We can't offer to pay anymore because that would be illegal. You can't do that. That's classed as bribery. But we could do that now because of the position we find ourselves in, right? So we could go out and do that. Now, part of the consequence of this whole paying ourselves first, so the I, we, and all strategy, is that your bills, your debtors, all that shit come last. Right, so let's say if you have a low income month, and depending on how you work, right? So some of the people listening to this might be people whose income doesn't fluctuate and they earn, $6,000 a month every month. So it doesn't change. But for business owners, it can fluctuate depending on how where your business is at, etc., and what you're doing. So when that occurs, it's like, well, it doesn't mean that you stop paying yourself first. You still pay yourself the same amount of percentage. And the way I manage it from there is it's a priority of bills, right? So it's like, we're first, second is the we, and then third, if you go down into your bills, you prioritize your bills. Now, the way I prioritize my bills was always based on what were the things that could generate me the income. So it's like, well, phone comes first, internet comes first, because if I don't have those things, I can't generate an income. So it's like the first, when it comes to my bills, that's like the first thing I pay. Then it's like prioritized down from there. So then, like credit card, rent, all that sort of stuff. So here comes in the challenge, right? Is that when you start to play the game by your rules, other people have different sets of rules. So bank have different sets of rules. The rental companies have different sets of rules. And so to play by your rules, you're pushing the boundaries on their rules, right? So it's like, well, I'm saving money. Credit card might be down the bottom. So you know what? Fuck you. I'm not paying you this month. You can wait till next month and I'll have a late credit card, like I have a late payment, right? It's like, well, you know what? I'm going to pay this rent a week late this week because this money needs to go in here, and that's more important because it's driving me towards my goal of that financial independence, right? So there's the consequence of trying to get yourself into this position where you're financially more independent than the average person, right? So the consequence of that is that these people don't like the way that you manage your money. These people look at you and they go, mate, you have late payments, or they go, mate, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so the drawback of managing your money in that way, in order for you to get ahead, to be able to get yourself into a position that allows you to become, I guess, less dependent on those people, means that you're not playing by their rules and then you piss them off, right? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to then transitioning over into having to play by their rules, right? Because think of it this way, if you go to a bank and you're like what happened to us, right? That payment that was late. If you go to the bank, they look at that and they go, well, you haven't been playing by our rules. We don't like you, right? You look at your rental ledger and it's like, well, here, he's late here. He's like, he was getting paid paying us every fortnight, which means he was like these many days behind every time he paid, right? As an example. And so therefore they're looking at that and they're going, oh, you're a shit tenant, right? So part of the consequence of mastering the money, even though I was communicating with them, right? So like we're communicating, part of the consequence of mastering your own independence and wealth in order to build out of that and break out of that cycle is that you will piss other people off. Now, when you piss them off and then you need them, guess what happens? They don't want to look at you, right? So now part of, like why we're also here as well, I guess this flows into it, is that the downside of that is that these people don't like the way we manage our money and the fact that we prioritize ourselves. So it didn't matter that we had the cash there, it didn't matter that we had assets, it didn't matter that we had investments, all that stuff was fine. They were happy with that. It was just the payment, right? So they don't like that, right? So you got to understand that whenever you're going for mastery, or whenever you're going for a goal or an outcome in any area of life, you've got to understand that there could be unseen consequences and drawbacks to the decisions that you're making that unless you're aware of, will come in and sideswipe you, right? So part of the cool thing about this whole situation is it's actually made me more aware of some of those rules, right? Because I'm not really a rule player, right? But obviously, in order for us to now move into that space where we need to use them, I now have to rethink the way I'm using my money for a while, or that strategy for a while, in order to be able to then leverage into using them and start to use their money, which means I need to play by their rules, right? Mm-hmm. So that was one of the big lessons that came out of this, was that it actually woke me up to some of the unseen downsides that I hadn't really looked for, or wasn't really aware of. And I think understanding that whenever you make a decision to go after something, and whenever you do that, it's very, and I say this to my clients, and for some reason I think just because I set this up in 2015 and had just stuck to it, I'd just never taken the time to look at the possible consequences of setting up my finances this way and managing my money this way. Like I'd never, like our goal was to be in a position that to be able to put us into a home at some point in the future while we've got our investments growing at the same time. And so I had never looked at the possibility that, what happens if we need to get out of a house and find a rental? And then your rental ledger looks a little bit shit.
Yeah.
We'd never looked at that, or never looked at the consequences of, okay, well, I'm just thinking that I if I've got all this cash, the banks are just going to be like, oh yeah, come fucking play with us, right? Oh, you got all these investments. Oh yeah, just come back and play with us. No, they're like, no, now you have to play by our rules.
Yeah, unless you have like $2 million in cash.
Well, unless you're paying for the house in cash, or paying for whatever in cash, then you don't have to play by their rules, right? So I think it was very humbling in regards to realizing that, okay, there's different levels of the game. And at each level of the game that you're playing at, you have to also realize that when you want to start playing the game with other people who have the power in those situations, you have to then shift the way that you're playing your game in order to be able to get in to play their game, right? It's like you can't go and play, you can't play soccer with AFL rules,
no,
right? Or you can't play tennis with badminton rules, right? So part of this situation definitely helped to humble me to understand, oh shit, like I was playing the game at this level, but now if I want to take this level and start leveraging other people's money, I'm going to have to start being not necessarily not playing by my rules, but shift, I guess, prioritization, etc., to make it look like I'm playing by their rules while still playing by mine. So then it's like, oh well, I need a tactical shift on the way that I'm doing things in order to get this in the right position for us to keep playing the game, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So it was really cool to have this experience, to just make me aware of that. And I think that's a great lesson to not only take, into the financial section, but it's a great lesson to take across into any area of life that you're looking to master. Because if you want to play with other people, you have to understand that you have your rules, they have their rules. How do you make their rules and your rules cross over so that you can both work together, right? And if you want to start playing by, if you want to get into their game, you've got to start playing by their rules, or deliberately making decisions to match what they need, while still playing by your rules, but also matching it to their rules in order to start playing the game before you want to try and get in and play the game with them. Right? Because and I guess the way to look at that, it's like if you've never played soccer before and you've been playing AFL, you're not going to go to United FC and say, hey, I want to play soccer, and they're going to be like, mate, you don't even know the fucking rules. right? So it's like, well, that's why it's like, well, maybe if he's a super athlete and he started training and he was really good, and for 12 to 18 months beforehand he was playing by their rules, they might go, oh, well, we'll give you a run. So I think it's the same thing in every area of life. It's like, if you're trying to shift your game to a new level, it's like you need to understand the rules of that level so you can start playing at that level before you get to that level, so then you can obviously leverage it and get in there, right? So whether that's business, if you think of that in business, it's like, well, maybe you want to work with businesses in itself, depends on what you do. So you might want to work with some high-level individuals, and so you need to understand how their game is played in order to be able to play that game with them, and so you can't just go in and try and change their rules and think that your rules are right when they're the one who's actually probably got the power in that dynamic, and they're just going to say no.
Yeah.
So I think for me, in regards to this whole experience, that's probably been one of the biggest lessons, was to look at that and go, okay, there's different sets of rules and different sets of levels in every area of life, and how you play that, or understanding the rules of what you want to start to play into, and start playing by those rules and integrating them into your current set, is important for you to be able to then step up into that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The way I see that, and what I take from your perspective, and hopefully what I can share to everyone listening and watching, is that it's almost like if you have this goal of self-mastery, like mastery in all areas of life, and achieve, awesome things, big things, inspiring things, things you love in all of the different areas of your life, and become a well-rounded, aware, autonomous individual, is, first of all, society's rules are built around the average person. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when you have that goal, I think, just like you're explaining it, is you don't see things as stressful. You see things as, okay, well, what can I learn from this? What's the lesson? Instead of, oh, this is fucking shit. Oh, everything's, those people you meet, it's fucking shit. Everything goes bad for me. It's a shit day. Oh, this happened, and there's no benefit to that. And there's, it's like, oh, okay, what's the lesson? We're here for, like, if you have this life goal, which I know might be a bit abstract and big for some people to have, this, like, what do I want the last day of my life to look like? What have I achieved by the time I've died? Or what do I want people to say at my funeral? It might be a bit abstract. But if you have a goal that's big enough, then you see things as, like, it's a journey, right? You see it as a journey, which is what I take from you. It's like, it's not stressful. They're just lessons you're learning to help you with your financial mastery, right?
100%, because it's like, if I look at where I was in 2015, 2016, right? Like, we were living week to week. It was like, man, we're getting paid on Thursdays, I think, back then, because I was employed. I was getting paid on Thursdays, and, like, we were done by Monday. You don't have no money, and to be going, so if I have a look at that level, like, that's total disempowerment.
Yeah.
Now, in order for us to have got to where we are now, like, out of that debt that we had back then, building buffer, building investments, and getting to the situation that we're in 6 months, required us to break the societal norm, required us to take charge and control and empower ourselves financially, and not only via strategy, but also mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
Like, the hardest part of sticking to a strategy is the mental and emotional disharmony that can come from breaking your old patterns, but also from the challenges that arise from that, right? So going way back, it's like, well, I became aware of the problems and challenges that may arise at that point in time. Like, okay, well, how are we going to deal with, like, phone company or the power company, or, like, just people that we had to pay, so that we can start putting money aside, so that we didn't end up back in a debt cycle. Because one of the challenging things is that people pay off their debt, and then they tend to get excited and they want something new, and then they go and get back in debt again, right? Or a bill will show up, or something big will show up, and they'll freak out, because that's what most people do, is that when it comes to money, is that they get hot, they get stressed when bills come in, and in order to get rid of the stress, they use the money that they've got in order to reduce the stress, right? And so they don't want people chasing them. They don't want the stress of that, which is, that's their decision, right? But it's just an ineffective way of managing it. It's like, well, okay, every time I get bills and things coming in, I'm just going to use all my money to do that, but then I'm still fucking stressed out because I don't have any money, right? Because I don't have any money in order to move forward. Now, you can choose to have that stress, or you can choose to have the stress of, I'm going to pay myself some money first, and then I'm going to distribute my money, right? And so it's just a decision of which stress you're going to take on, right? And then it's like, well, what's the effective strategy to deal with that? Well, then I need to communicate with my debtors in order to let them know that I'm going to pay this late, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And so then, in order to get themselves ahead, you need to start saving in order to make sure that you don't fall back into the debt cycle. Either way, you're going to be fucking stressed out. It's like, which stress is actually getting you ahead in life?
Ooh.
Because the pattern, right, of and look, we're just in this financial sense, the pattern of this, like, oh fuck, I get stressed out, I got all these bills and debts and shit, all right, I got to just work my ass off to pay them off all the time, right? But then I never get anywhere financially, and if I do save some money, well then I usually fucking blow it on something because I'm so stressed out, I feel like I need some sort of reward or relief, and so I blow it anyway.
Yeah.
So you're stressed anyway. And then you blame money for your stress, but it's not your fucking money. It's the way that you manage your money that's the cause of the stress, right? So you can have that stress, or you can make the decision to start saving and put some money aside and deal with that stress of having not as much money to put into your debts, and then dealing with them and having conversations and communication with those individuals, and figuring out how to also prioritize those debts. So then you're paying the debts off in the sense of which ones are going to cost you the most first to least at that point in the game. And then having those conversations with those people and keeping in communication with them so they don't get pissed off with you, right? Because also another pattern that comes up is a lot of people disappear when they don't have the money to fucking pay for shit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, like the phone company rings 18 times and they never answer the phone because I don't want to deal with the consequence of not having the money instead of just dealing with the conversation. Right, so then it's about being proactive in having the conversation before being reactive, getting stressed out because people are chasing you for money. We'll have the conversation about it, and then once you have the conversation about it, then you can set yourself up in order to be winning and feel less stress, or feel relief from that stress because you've had that conversation with that person or with those people in order to set yourself up to start putting yourself first and getting ahead. Right, so really you've got the choice of the two stresses. It's either the stress of saving the money and then having to deal with those individuals, or it's the stress of repeating that fucking pattern for the rest of your life. So we're in that situation in 2015, and so we made a decision to change that. But all it did was take the stress from one, like still financially, but was take the stress out of the way we managed our money this way and putting the stress here. Because you've got to remember that all growth comes through stress. To some degree, stress and pressure will create growth. And so if you're choosing your stress, which is helping you advance in your life, you'll have breakthroughs and grow. If you're trying to avoid shit, and that's the thing that's causing the stress, because think of it this way, it's like, well, I'm paying all my debts off because I'm trying to run away from it. Like, get my money in and I'll fucking feed it to whoever wants it, so I feel relief. Oh, thank fuck, that's done. But then you just go into the same cycle again.
Yeah, if you have a fantasy of never wanting to pay anyone, it's like, well, okay, where are you going to go in life if you're going to try and not pay anyone for things? Like, it's good to pay for things, and if other people ask you for things, and debt can be a great thing.
So when it comes to it, you've just got to understand what stress you're choosing.
Yeah.
Because you can't get rid of it. Like, you've got to make a decision what's the stress you're going to take on. You can have the stress that feels like it's destroying your life, or you can have the stress that feels like it's building your life.
Ooh.
Which one do you want? Because it's true, right? Like, how many people are in distress most of the fucking time because they're trying to avoid it? Distress is only a byproduct of things that you're trying to avoid, and you're not choosing things to actually do with your life and choosing stresses to take on. It's like going to the gym. It's like you can either be stressed out and unhealthy and fucking hate your body and hate the way that you feel and hate your energy levels and be fucking stressed out by that. Or you can be stressed out by getting up in the morning, making a decision to go into the gym, training, stressing your body, letting your body adapt and fucking getting somewhere and feeling better about yourself and building your self-worth. Again, one stress, if I go to self-worth, one stress builds your self-worth, one stress destroys your self-worth. What do you fucking want in your life? You want to build your life? Do you want to destroy your life? Either way, you got to choose a stress. One way you're choosing one consciously, one way you're choosing one unconsciously. One way you're stepping into it and creating it, one way you're trying to step away from it and avoid it. One causes creation, well, consciously causes creation, one consciously causes destruction. Right? So, where was I going? Oh, yeah, okay, so coming right back, so that was a position we're in 2015, and then, you know, like, as things have grown and we've made decisions, now we've come to this point where now we've empowered ourselves and gotten out of those dynamics, and we're empowered in a different level, but we're not empowered compared to, like, people at the next level. So there's a whole new set of fucking rules that come with that. Whole new set of challenges, whole new set of disadvantages, whole new set of benefits that I just never took the time to make myself aware of. Now, it's interesting because most people may think, oh, well, you're a fucking self-mastery guy, like, shouldn't you have already done that? Well, no, hold on a minute, I'm a fucking human being. And part of the reason why I love self-mastery is because, and love doing this stuff, is because I have fucking gaps. And that's one of my gaps. I didn't see that. I didn't see these possible consequences. I didn't see these challenges that could have arose because, here it is, tunnel vision. I was tunnel visioned on the financial goal. And so I was not taking into my awareness the full spectrum of possible consequences that could have occurred. Now, here's the crazy thing though, right? Here's the upside of managing my money if we hadn't been able to. Let's say, for example, we weren't able to, we weren't here with my parents, right? Or Sarah's parents. Let's say that they were in another state, right? Like when we lived in Adelaide, right? And let's say we wouldn't have been able to find a rental, right? So this is part of the upside of, even if you aren't aware of the consequences, but you managed yourself effectively, I wouldn't be stressed out because I'd be like, all right, well, let's just get a hotel. And we can live there until we find somewhere to live. Why? Because I have the cash flow to do that. Why? Because I've got the financial buffer to do that. Why? Because I've got the emergency funds to do that. So that's the upside of it, is that all the emotional stress is gone out of our life, even though we found ourselves in a position that I would say 90%, and that's just, I don't know if that's correct. Could be fucking more, could be less. But most people would be freaking the fuck out now if they were in that situation and they didn't have anywhere to go. Right, so you take my mum and dad out of it, you take Sarah's parents out of it, because they would, you know, like, we're obviously in this position now where we're here, but let's you take them out. If they're not there and we couldn't get a house and we had to get out, be like, okay, well, we just find somewhere like that and we pay for it and we live there. Right? That's because of the stresses that we chose to take on from 2015 up until now in regards to the way we managed our money, in order to get ourselves into a position where life can throw this shit at us, where there's a financial consequence, and we're going to be okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, The way I see it is, it takes your amygdala, like your lower brain, your stress, black and white kind of, fuck, what am I going to do? How am I going to eat? What shelter am I going to have? Like, where's all my, my basic human needs? But if you've got a bank account that's got, 3 months, a year's worth of your current lifestyle sitting there, then you're like, oh, it doesn't really, I could wake up tomorrow and absolutely fucking hate what I have to do for work and just quit everything, like get out of everything and just live for 3 months and just figure out what I want to do for 3 months. Like, I can be homeless, like anything can happen and I'm still safe because it's like that buffer, that safety net, the cushion there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the emotional. It's like, that's part of it, right? Like, if you look at the strategy in itself, like, the buffer is just that mental. It's like that mental and emotional safety net. Because in finances, most people make a lot of fucking emotional decisions, right? You think about how many people are chasing get-rich-quick schemes, or like chasing ways to make money fast because they're trying to escape something in their life, right? Like, oh, I want to make money fast, or I want to build this business fast, or I want to make this thing fast, or whatever. And so they make decisions based on how fast they can make money because they feel like they don't have enough money in order to get them out of the position they're in. A great example of that would be the 2018 Bitcoin fucking thing. Remember, I don't know if you remember, but like everyone in 2018, look, it's kind of blew up again, but I think in 2018, I'm pretty sure it was 2018. Like there was all these people, like, I don't know if you were I was getting random fucking messages from people telling me that I should be buying Bitcoin, and then there was like the multi-level marketing fucking Bitcoin. It was just like all this Bitcoin shit. Now I remember people based on greed, I heard of people selling their fucking houses to put money into Bitcoin.
Jesus, that's a...
Right? How crazy is that?
That's a gamble,
right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a gamble, like, yeah, like, yeah. So like they were individuals who were looking for a get-rich scheme, right? So thought they'd put all their money in this because everyone's saying this is the thing, right? But then what happened when it crashed? You know, fucking lost your house, right? Because they're looking for a get-rich-quick scheme, and I'm telling you now, individuals who do that 100% of the time, and I'll fucking back that statistic, could be slightly wrong, but 100% of the time, if an individual is selling their house to put something into a get-rich-quick scheme, like fucking Bitcoin, at that time, right, which they don't have any investment strategy, they don't understand investments, they don't understand the risk, they don't understand any of that stuff, you know that's all based on greed. I can tell you right now that those people were seeking some sort of level of freedom and felt trapped in their fucking life, and that's why they made such a silly decision to invest their sell their property and put that money into Bitcoin, and probably whatever other money they may have had as well, without ever actually having a plan in order to allow them to get to that point where they've earned their way to risk that sort of money, right? Like, it's really interesting. There was even a crash in the last few weeks in one of the coins. I'm not sure if you've heard, but there was a crash in one of the coins. So, and I follow a guy, and he was saying alone in that he already had 7 people. He already knew 7 people who committed suicide because of that crash of that coin.
Wow.
Yeah. Why? Well, that's because there's an emotional decision that's been made to put your money into something that's high risk, that you did not understand the consequences and the risk of that thing, right? So these individuals have obviously lost probably everything, I would suggest, right? It was a decision based on greed, right? Greed in the sense that they wanted the money, fear in the sense that they were afraid of missing out on that thing if it took off.
Yeah.
So having a financial buffer, like if we look at the mastery of finances, like one of the key things is like, first you need a buffer there in order to buffer your life from anything that could come in and sideswipe you. So that could be illness, could be fucking lose your job, could be the situation that we've just found ourselves in. You know, it could be many different things. Like, so to buffer you, so then therefore you can make strategic decisions instead of emotional freak out decisions. But also, it's like one of the first steps and stages to helping you to get on track in order to allow yourself to invest in some low-risk things, because you're not attached to the same degree to the money that you put into the market or put into whatever you put it into, right? So think of it this way. You save $5,000 and you put $5,000 into the market, but that's the only 5K you've got. Mate, that market drops 10% or 11%, you're freaking the fuck out. People are freaking the fuck out. Now, you look at the market at the moment, like, there's fluctuations that are going, like, it's pretty volatile at the moment, right? The market is itself. So imagine if that's your $5,000 and you're in the market at the moment. Can you imagine what your emotions are like every day?
Volatile,
right? So the buffer is important because it's there to buffer your emotions for your ability to invest, but also to protect you and buffer you to be able to make strategic decisions if you have things get thrown at you in life that maybe you weren't expecting. Illness, losing your job, business crashes, fucking, there's many things. And I think you mentioned something really great before, which I think comes down to Maslow's hierarchy, right? It's like, the financial buffer also takes care of the lowest rung on Maslow's hierarchy, the physiological needs and security, right? So if you have that there, you're actually setting yourself up to be able to think more strategically, live in a higher level of the brain, because financially you're not fucking worried about just making money. Right? You think of it this way, you know, when people when you communicate with people, right? And you communicate with people around their work, and they're talking about how they have to work to make money, how they have to do this to make money, how they like their work is directly related to a have to, right? You kind of already know that their financial situation is probably fucking pretty shit, right? Because like, I have to work money. Well, they probably don't have a heap of money saved. I have to. They've either got a heap of debt, right? There's something going on there in regards to money that they then feel like they have to sacrifice their life in order to make money, but that's because they're still living in that lower rungs of Maslow's hierarchy, right? They might look like on the outside that they've got the house, the car, the boat, like you see it here. Let's say here in Bendigo, right? So there's a lot of people who work in the Fosterville mine, which is one of the biggest gold mines in the world here, right? So, and I'm going to make a generalization here. I'm not saying it's everyone, but you know, like the HSVs and the boats and the fucking motorbikes and the jet skis and all that stuff on the outside to make it look like your fucking life's together, but you're fucking stuck in this job that you fucking hate because you've trapped yourself financially by all these decisions to get into debt for all these things, right? And so your security and your lifestyle and your image, right, all part of the, like, and your social standings, all part of the Maslow's hierarchy, is all directly related to your ability to maintain and have money. Yet you haven't set yourself up financially in order to ensure that you can start making better decisions about your own life by at least starting to build a buffer. Like, you look at it this way, it's like even the buffer allows a person to make more aligned, even if they are unclear on what that means. But it gives you more choices and options in regards to the way that you make decisions in life. If you're trapped by a boat fucking debt, a house debt, a car debt,
child payments,
well, maybe like jet ski debt, right? No, let's say you're in $1.5 million worth of debt. How the fuck are you meant to make a decision to step, like, from the mines, right? Let's say that they're earning $140 a year, right? $140K a year. How the fuck are you going to make a decision? And let's say you hate your job. How the fuck are you going to make a decision if you're attached to those things? How are you going to make a decision that doesn't risk all those things being put on the line to a high degree, that aligns more with what you really want to do with your life versus this fucking getting stuck underground for fucking ever? You know? So the first step is, like, understand your money, like, and we've spoken about this on another podcast, to understand and empower something, you have to track it and know how it actually fucking works to start with. So that buffer in itself allows individuals to start making better decisions around their entire life, not just financially. It's like, it's literally the safety net of your basic human fucking needs, which allows you to make better decisions in your life, or to make decisions that have a little bit more risk in your life. And remember this, right? Like, I guess this is a good way to think about that $5,000 example I gave before. Think of it this way. It's like, well, let's say you got $5,000 and you invest it. That's 100% of your finances. How big of a risk do you think that is? Like, that's a huge risk versus reward sort of profile when you reflect on it in regards to your life, right? It's like, I've got $5,000 cash and I put it into an investment, but I don't have anything to protect me if something goes wrong in my life. So that's a huge risk. But let's say that 3 months of your expenses is, I don't know, $13,000, right? Let's say it's $13,000 of expenses for 3 months of your life. If you got 13 grand saved, and then you put 5 grand into an investment, right? The risk is completely different. The emotions are completely different. Yes, if it's your first investment, you might be a little bit freaking out about it, especially if you haven't done your mindset work, especially if you haven't got good advice and you're just fucking throwing your cash into shit with no idea, like that's risky in itself. But the risk in itself, even though it's the same amount of money, and let's say you put it into the same thing, the risk on your entire life as a risk entirety is completely different to if you've just got $5,000 cash and you put it into something. It's totally different risk that you're taking. So the emotional buffer, or the buffer, or however you want to call it, is like one of the first steps in order to ensure that you're starting to empower yourself financially and master that area of life. But then the consequence of that is an absolute flow-on effect to the way that you make decisions in every area of life.
Well,
so, I think that,
I think in especially because for a while there, I'm like, oh, how long is he going to babble on about finances? I want to get to the other areas of life. I want to hear about mastery in other areas of life. But the really what you've just said is that buffer is such, especially in today's society where we're all about, value is basically money, right? So I feel like it's the safest, the surest, most certain way for you to elevate your mind and your awareness to make better decisions for yourself and for your family and whatever, right? So I feel like, step one for self-mastery, let's say is, you can correct me here. Step one for self-mastery is create a plan to have a financial buffer or a safety net, right? Would you agree?
I think that, so the way I look at that is that I wouldn't say it's step one to self-mastery, because there's
one of the foundational steps.
Well, it's one of the foundational steps when it comes to, if you're looking for self-mastery in regards to the areas of life, 100%. Why? Because it's literally the buffer which allows you to make better decisions, control your emotions, and make decisions about the direction of where you want to take your life, which doesn't necessarily only depend, especially if we look at the career and the business area of life, of how much fucking money you're going to be making. Because look, when a lot of people start working, right, it's not necessarily that they jump into the thing that they love. It might be that they jump into something that's going to make them money. Think about it as a young bloke. It's like, oh, you want a sick car and you want a boat and you want a fucking jet ski and you think that's going to fucking attract all the chicks and you're going to look sick out on your fucking behind your boat and all the ladies are going to love you, whatever, right? And so you go and join the mines because you think that's going to make the most amount of cash. But then you fucking trap yourself forever and you fucking you're hating your life, but on the outside it looks like you've got everything. Right? So let's say you even found yourself in that position. It's like, well, if you start to build a buffer of finances, right? And so remember, the buffer, if you get into the detail of it, means that you would have to have 3 to 6 months worth of all those fucking repayments in as part of that buffer, because it's about your expenses. Right? So you can be safe for 6 months to start making different decisions that weren't necessarily based on finances. Right? Because these people are making decisions about what makes them money. I have to do this. I have to work on this. I have to go to work because if I don't, we can't make our repayments. Oh, I have to go to work because of this. Now, it doesn't mean that there isn't elements of their work that they don't love, because there partially is. If they're there, there's going to be of some value in that for them, or something that aligns with their values in that for them to some degree, maybe not their highest value, but somewhere in the values hierarchy. And so they may be making those decisions on I have to, right? So when you're talking about I have to, right, that is the lowest part of the brain that you're really speaking from. So it's like the level of, as DeMartini puts it, it's a suicidal level. It's like a life, it's like life or death. It's like I have to do this shit. It's like even listen to yourself when you're saying I have to do this shit. It's like you have to force yourself to do it. Imagine getting up every day and having to force yourself to get out of bed. All because you feel like you're sacrificing, well, this isn't necessarily how you feel, but you definitely are sacrificing your life. You're a slave to money, basically. You're sacrificing your life for money, right? And so the buffer, if you have a buffer early on, or you want to sort of break that cycle, the buffer is one of the fastest ways in order to help you to then break that cycle, because it gives you the ability to make different decisions. Gives you the ability to start to look at, oh, this isn't really what I do love. Let's say I've got 6 months here. Maybe I can take a day off work or 2 days off work and reduce my roster and start to explore some of these things that I've wanted to explore forever, except I just got trapped in this money-making cycle. And so therefore you start to level up your life and start to shift your life in a different direction. Why? Because you've got money there that's going to allow you to do that. You've got a protection barrier. So when it comes to like one of the foundations, 100% I believe it is one of the foundations, because it's not just a money tool, it's a mental and emotional tool. It frees up your thinking space. It allows you to make different decisions that aren't necessarily based on your finances. It allows you to ask different questions that aren't related to finances. Because if money is one of the primary drivers because you're under so much financial stress, you're going to be asking, well, you're not even going to be asking probably quality questions. You're probably just going to be asking about the things that make you money, because you're trying to get out of that debt. You're trying to escape it, right? So it's the preoccupied thought all the time is about how much money I'm making. So the buffer in itself allows you to free yourself from that. So yes, it is definitely a primary thing that people should start to, don't want to say should. It would be wise for people to look at how they can start to manage their money in a way that allows them to start putting money aside in order to start getting themselves ahead, in order to free up the mental and emotional and their decision-making capacities in order to change and shift their life, if money is one of the things that's trapping them. If you're young and you don't have any money traps, it would be very wise to start to think about putting some money away to start building a buffer. So in regards to a primary thing, I think, yes, it is a primary thing. The most primary thing, no. But when it comes to financial empowerment, it is the first primary thing to start doing and to figure out how to get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me, I feel like, is I heard DeMartini say, you got to make your vocation your vacation. And I'm like, the first time you hear that, you're like, oh, there's no way you can work and it feels like a fucking holiday. But the very first time one of the first time I was personal training, and I literally, woke up, fucking had breakfast, went to the gym, trained someone. Like one of the first few weeks I was personal training, I was just having fun. Like, yeah, just squat, hey, let's do some squats, do some leg, here you go. Just like, I didn't have a fucking plan or some it was basically like I was working out, but hey, here you go, come and do some, right? It was so effortless and I loved it so much. And then at the end, I still remember it so vividly. She just gave me, here you go, here's $60. And I'm like, whoa, this is what it feels like to just fucking love what you do and get paid for it. And I feel like if you have that have to mindset, I have to go to work to get money to pay it off, because if I don't do that, then I have to, you're in that have to mindset. It's like, if you have enough money in the back pocket for your lifestyle and that protection, it's like a layer of fat protecting your organs and your body. It's like, then you don't work because you have to, you work because you love to. And what a fucking, the difference that makes.
This was a really cool realization I had the other day on this, is that most people trade their labor for money, but people who love what they do trade their love for money.
Oh, that's
so so people get paid to. So those who have to do it, they pretty much pimp out their actions and their body and their mind and their thinking and their decisions to someone else in order to prostitute themselves for money, because that's what it is. Whereas the individual who loves what they do, right, they're actually getting paid for their love.
Wow.
It's two different things. And so you're not going there worried about what you're getting paid. You're going there because you love what you do.
Yeah.
So it's two different levels of thinking, right? It's not even thinking, it's two different levels of life, not even thinking. And similar to what you're saying, I remember the first time sort of thinking, fuck, you can get paid to do what you love.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know about that. Like that just doesn't sound right. But
Yeah.
if you go back and you have a look at the way that a lot of people think about work hard. Now, even that statement itself, you got to work hard. Most people think of something as like when they're working and it hard means that it has to feel like it's hard work, right? Now you think about this idea of hard work, right? In that sense, obviously it depends on the individual's interpretation, right? If I use when I spoke to clients and similar things that you've said, if it doesn't feel hard, the person feels like they don't have any value in doing it, and therefore they feel like they shouldn't be getting paid to do it because it's something that they just intrinsically naturally do, and we're not taught that things that you intrinsically naturally do are valuable to others. If it doesn't feel hard, then you don't feel like you should be rewarded for doing something that isn't hard. That's where most people sit. If it's not hard, why am I getting rewarded to do this? Well, you know what? How fucking hard do you think it is for the greatest speakers to get on stage and speak? Probably not hard. Yes, they've had periods of growth and uncomfortableness and probably done things that have challenged them. But it's like uncomfortableness is different to like grinding and working hard in the sense that this feels like shit, right? And that's how most people think about that. It's like work hard. Well, it's got to feel like shit in order for it to be worth any money. True or not true? It's how most people have shitty jobs and feel like they work hard. And it's not because of the work that they're doing that it feels hard. It's because of the alignment with the individual's value system, right? That then makes it feel hard to them. Right? And then therefore they think that's how you're meant to get paid. Right? If it feels flowy and easy, it's like people go, oh fuck, this is weird. Right? I'll even give you an example of one of my clients who she's an artist, and when she went out on her journey to actually just do art and she quit her job, she had this pattern. She was like, this just feels too easy. Like it's meant to be hard. Like she was questioning her value and worth because it didn't feel like hard work. But everything that she'd done before that was work that wasn't aligned with who she intrinsically was as a person. So there was hardness, like it felt hard to do that. And that's where she perceived her value came from, was the fact that she had to work hard in order to make money. But with her art, it just flows out of her. It just flows out of me. So how is that valuable if it just flows out of me? Because other people see the value in it. So it's really interesting, man. So I think that like the whole idea of like hard work and how we're brought up is part of the driving reasons why we may stay in things that feel hard, is because we feel like we're most valuable in doing things that are hard. Whereas if we do things that are easy, or that feel like they come easy, then even though it may be kind of fulfilling for us, it can be quite a paradigm shift for people, because they're not used to feeling that way in something that they get paid for.
Do you think the hardness or the hard factor, the discomfort, the difficulty, the challenge comes from breaking the social norms and breaking, not following the rules that other people set you?
Well, yeah, of course. Like if you look at, it's like if you have this belief system, or it depends how you're being raised, right? Like I think there's definitely an element of that, right? Or how society has brought you up, or how you've been raised, like so, or even how you've gone through school, right? So I think that there's beliefs that definitely come into it in the way that you interpret the world. There's social norms as well around that. So like what's socially acceptable may be a part of it. What your family thinks, what your friendship circle, etc. thinks. So if I go back to that person I was talking about before, a lot of her friends were telling her, telling her that like, she wasn't going to make it, she wasn't going to do this because she didn't have like the artsy degrees and stuff like that. right? She's doing well. She's living, right? It's taken her 18 months. She's been selling artwork. She's been getting commissions. She's doing well. She had to listen to them and just went back to what was comfortable, right? She would be back fucking working in the jobs that she didn't enjoy, going back to doing what was hard. So I think there's like the social part of that. There's the way that you're brought up and what you've either witnessed your parents or your guardians in the way that they spoke about work and what they went through with work. So you obviously your perceptions and your interpretation of that, whether that's 100% true based on them or not, but that's your interpretation. So I think there's a whole heap of things that can come into that. But if you look in Australia, it's like, I think socially there's this whole belief that you have to work hard.
Yeah.
Like not only just in like a family sense, but like, sorry, work hard's the wrong way to think about it. Like work hard is yes, but I think it's like the idea of like work hard means that things need to be hard when you're working. So, because the way I think about work hard now is like, okay, it's things that I love, but I'm going to go hard in it. That's different language to like work hard. And
right.
My interpretation of that has changed as I've grown. I've thought about these concepts and I've been like, oh, these people, you listen to their language, they're talking about working hard, but they feel like shit. And then when they go to do something they love, they literally have the opposite language. They're talking about how easy it feels. Like, are you sure you can get paid for this? You know, like I even remember questioning when I first started coaching. I was like, how can I get paid for the things that I just do naturally?
Yeah. Dude,
like it just seems like a backwards concept, but we're not taught that, right? Think about at school even, like, and this is, I don't want to bag out schools because I think that they're starting to progress a little bit, especially the experiences my kids have had compared to what I had at school. But you were forced to do things that you didn't like. And if you didn't, and those things that you didn't like, and if you weren't good at them, you're pretty much put into like a special class, or you might have been told that you weren't going to do anything or be anyone. You know, like specifically back when I was at school, it's like your interests weren't important. It was like what the school cared about is what was important. You know, like I loved fucking cars and stuff back then. Cars, I actually had an interest in business, accounting, etc. And cars, but like those things weren't like, fuck, school doesn't care about that shit.
Yeah.
Sport as well. So it's like, coming back to your question, I think that the reason why people find it hard is because of those layers of things.
Yeah.
Social beliefs, their social groups, etc. So I think there's a certain point though, I think, that I've noticed, and it seems to be in the 30s, that people tend to start trying to shatter out of that paradigm and move more towards what they love. That's what I've noticed. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just more of the people I work with, but I've definitely noticed that. So, yeah.
So let's start. So there's a financial area or money or whatever
You only
area.
have 6 to go.
Yeah. So what? So how do you? Because I follow like how Diamantini teaches them.
Mm-hmm.
How do you look at the different areas, and what are your sort of categories or labels for the different areas?
Well, mine's pretty much the same as John's. Since I think when I look at it in an intimate relationship, I separate that.
Okay. Yep.
So I've got family. I'll just go mental, spiritual, physical. Then I've got business or career, then financial. Then I have family, intimate relationship, and then like your social connections.
Okay.
So that's the way I think about that. Well, John says 7, I say 8.
Okay, yeah.
For me personally, I think of the intimate relationship as separate to the family area of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So can you go around to each area and just give me to put you on the spot, the quick one sentence or an hour on each area. Let's do it. An 8-hour podcast. Just go around to each area, just define how you see it. Like just completely subjectively biased Justin Wiseman's fucking opinion on the different areas, because I really want to know.
Like, so what specifically do you want to know about them?
How
I define them? Or...
Oh, I think you missed the physical area before, but
I said physical.
You did?
It was the third one I said.
Oh, Yes, you did. Yeah. So just go, mental area of life. What does mental area of life mean to you?
Okay, to me.
Yes.
So like the mental area
Yeah.
of life, the way I see it is your ability to like make decisions, plan, like forward think, your ability to manage your thinking. Like, so to me, the fundamental foundation of, I think, the entirety of your life is the mental area.
Okay.
So if there's a foundation, it's like mental,
Okay.
right? Because I think
Yeah.
if you the empowerment of each area of life and the mastery of each area of life always comes down to your perceptions, your decisions, and your actions. And so your perceptions, decisions, and actions drive your ability to master all 7 areas of life. So without this, you're not going to be able to master each area of life. Now, just on the mastery bit, can I
What's mastery mean? Yeah.
When I say mastery, I don't think you're ever going to master every area of life in the sense that you're going to have it mastered.
Yeah.
Because you can't. Life is about growth and evolution, which means there's ever expanding, let's say, spheres of where you're at and what you know and what you don't know. And so if you look at my financial story from before, I was at this small level, popped out, and I've obviously had growth, and now I'm like pushing on the boundaries of that next level. And there's things in there that I know nothing about, and that I'm going to have to learn about and expand into, right? So when you look at mastery in the sense of mastery, someone says they've mastered their entire life, or I've mastered this area of life. No, you haven't. What you're fucking telling me is that you've stopped growing and you've stopped looking for your own gaps in ways to expand those parts of your life. Because if you believe that you've mastered it, all you're seeing at that point in time is all the good in that area of life, and you're missing all the problems. Well, what I should say is that you perceive that you've found the solution to that entire area of life, but what you're missing is the problems involved with that solution. And so you're limiting yourself on your own growth, right? So we can have levels of mastery, right? So it's like if we go to the financial example, it's like, not that that's my specialty, but I've helped clients with that, right? So it's like I can help them to get to where I'm at. Now I have better lessons to teach them about the consequences of that through my own experiences. But it's like everyone's at a different level of mastery, right? So it's like the layer that I was at before is like, now I'm like fucking pushing and perturbating on that and like stressed out because I'm like trying to get to the next level in order to expand that. Now, for some people, they might look at my level and go, dude, this guy's nowhere. It's like, well, I don't give a fuck what you think. If I have a look at where I was to where I am today, to where I'm planning to go, that's my fucking journey. I would never master finances. If you ask Warren Buffett today, probably arguably the greatest investor, or Charlie Munger on the planet, Ray Dalio, you ask any of those guys about finances, they're fucking constantly learning and growing. They haven't mastered it. They've mastered it to a level. So when it comes to mastery, I just want to ensure that people understand that it's not like, oh, you get to a level and you stop. No, Mastery is the journey. It's the journey of consistently discovering your gaps. And when you consistently discover your gaps, filling those gaps in, expanding, and then realizing that, oh, fuck, I've just created a heap more disadvantages, problems, and more gaps that I have to figure out as I've expanded into that. So I just wanted to touch on that. Maybe we should have touched on that at the start, but that mastery isn't a level of like, oh, I stop here, because that in itself is false. If you've stopped, you haven't mastered it. You've deluded yourself into this idea that you've got no more growth, and that's it. And so you'll be trapped in a paradigm, right? And so then you'll probably be thinking, well, fuck, if I've mastered it, why? Either you're in a delusion because you'll be like, oh, well, I'm not that, like, life's so great, yet your that whole area of your life's falling apart, or you'll start to run into the consequences of that. So just understand that mastery isn't about getting to a point there's no more growth. Mastery, the way I look at it, is that it is the journey. Doesn't matter where you're at, you have a level below you that you've mastered, and so therefore you have mastery over that. It's like, can you walk? Yes. Okay. Do you consistently, out of 365 days a year, how often do you reckon you fall over? Fuck, I don't even know. Okay, could we probably say that you have mastery of walking? Yes. Okay. Well, let's look at your walking technique, right? That may be something that doesn't inspire you to look at, but it's like, well, I want to get faster at walking. I want to get, there's all these ways that you can look at
Yeah.
walking. And someone who's a walking expert but might look at the way that your gait pattern or whatever, right? And they might go, dude, you've got some mastery to do on that, right? So your gait pattern's out. Oh, your hips must be out. And so someone looks at you and go, oh, you can do this in order to fix your walking. You're like, what are you talking about? Like, my walking's okay. So we could argue that, yeah, you've mastered walking, right? Even though there's still growth available there, right? So you've mastered walking as a child does. So it's the same thing in other areas of life, right? So it's like, it's just the layers. So can you teach someone to walk? I don't know. If you've never thought about it, you probably can't. But you could if you chose to look at yourself and figure out what's really involved in it, became aware. Therefore, you could teach someone that. So therefore, have you mastered it? Yes. Is there growth still available for you to get better? Yes. But I've mastered that down there. I can get up off the ground and stand up. So that's why I like to think about mastery. Not that there's a level that you'll ever get to and finish at. It's about the consistent growth and mastering that thing that you're challenged with right now. Then boom, you're on the next one.
Yeah, it's mastery is mastering the method of getting better, evolving your self and your awareness. It's like mastery is knowing there's no end. Like you said, it's the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So coming back, like the mental area of life is definitely that, I believe, is the foundation, because the perceptions, decisions, and actions then drive the rest of those areas of life, right? If you can't make a decision, or if you've got beliefs and ideas and things about health that aren't serving you, then it's like, well, mentally you need to make a shift there, right? It's same financially, family, intimate relationship, spiritually. So really, it's the fundamental foundation core thing that then drives all of them out. So if you imagine it's like the seed of a tree, and as it like grows, it's like fundamentally the core thing that created the whole thing.
Dude,
right?
that's fucking crazy. I just realized that a fucking massive tree literally starts from a seed, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Dude, that's hectic.
Yep. So that's the foundation. That's what I personally believe.
Yep.
That's where I'm at. That's what I believe. It's the closest thing that I've been able to.
Good. Keep going.
find.
What are the other areas?
Then the spiritual area of life, I believe, is like they're also interlinked, bro.
Good.
So
that's why we want to explain it and break it down, because not everyone sees it like that, do they?
I think the more you empower yourself, the more you realize that you can't have that they all help each other, right? So to me, and everyone has different spiritual beliefs. So to me, spirituality is the degree that I can get in touch with me.
Ooh.
Right? Some people might look at spirituality as God. I'm not religious, but I do believe that the universe has like there's laws of the universe. There's something. There is an intelligence of the universe. I believe in that.
Yeah.
But like fundamentally, when it comes to my spirituality is my ability to connect with me. Right? So whatever gets me connected with me is what my spirituality is, which can be this. Like I'm having this conversation with you. Time has fucking disappeared. I don't even know how long we've been on for. Right? It's similar to what you're talking about before, like doing what you love, etc. It's like this to me is spiritual.
Yeah.
Well, I am, if this goes out and if it reaches, I don't know, if this conversation helps one person, then why isn't that spiritual? So to me, spirituality is my ability to connect with myself, but I feel connected with myself in doing this as an example. Right? So spirituality, that's it. And I think spirituality is also, this is what I mean by so interlinked. If I go again as like a fundamental piece of self-mastery, your spirituality will be derived out of who you are as an individual. Right? So if your highest value is to teach and educate people, you'll be most in touch with yourself and most in touch spiritually with yourself through that. Right? If your highest value as an individual is to build supercars or build race cars, or if we use Elon Musk, like if as an individual, like if his spiritual mission is to get people to Mars, right? Like, why is that any less spiritual than an individual who's a preacher? It's not. Everyone has their own spirituality. So I think discovering your own spirituality is just really about knowing who you are, which then fundamentally drives the way that you will, as a human, if we look at human behavior, then will make decisions, take your actions, and will perceive things through that. Then if you look at the physical, the way that I define that is like everything to do with your physical body, which includes your emotions. So I look at mental separate to physical, because I look at emotions as symptomology of what's going on mentally. Right. So if you're frustrated, well, what's going on mentally that's driving the feedback mechanism of emotion? That's, look, we could go into a whole different conversation on that. I don't want to do that here.
That's
because
cool.
that would take another hour.
That way.
Yeah. So like, you know, anger, depression, anxiety, all symptomology, right, of something. So the way I look at the physical is like it's your health, like, you know, what are you doing with your health? What are you, how are you looking after yourself physically, through food and movement and all those sorts of things. So that's the way I kind of look at the physical area of life. And I think also too, that as well, if we come back to like linking it all together, the way that you manage yourself physically and look after yourself physically has a direct reflection on the way that you show up in every other area of life as well. Right? If you're unhealthy, lacking energy, you don't move much. Like if you just look at the way that the physical body moves, if you look at it works, and if you just looked at one system, let's go to the lymphatic system. If you're sitting around all day and you're not moving and your lymphatic system isn't being able to operate, how do you think you're going to feel? You're going to feel like shit, right? Because like you're not moving your toxins through your body. You're not getting your toxins out, right? So it's like all of these things interlink fundamentally in order to being the greatest human being that you can be, right? Now that will have then a mental effect, that will then affect your spirituality, then how the fuck are you making decisions in the rest of your life, etc., etc., etc. So that's physical. Intimate relationships pretty straightforward, right? So it's like the love that you have with your partner. It's also like, and what that actually means. So, you know, you could talk about love languages as part of that. I think it's your sexuality as well. So that's a part of your intimate relationship. Then there's a whole other dynamic of that depending on the stage of your relationship, right? So, because if you look at your intimate relationship, once you're in one, what happens is that you're two individual people, but there tends to be a crossover in some of those areas of life that you then have to work with that other person on, right? So like financial, well, you can't, if you don't have an intimate relationship, or if you're not, you can't have kids. Well, that's not true. You can have kids without an intimate relationship, but, you know, so they're interlinked, and so there's a linking between that as well. You know, spirituality, you'll have things that are similar between you and your partner, and you'll have things that are completely different, and the way that you see different areas of life and your beliefs and values, etc., will be different in some areas, and some areas of life will be very similar. So I think what I've seen is that if you have a look at a lot of people who are super successful, there is a power couple dynamic that occurs where both people are super empowered in each area of life, but there's this dynamic that occurs where there's like this, they may be doing their own thing, but they're totally in support of each other as well. They probably challenge the fuck out of each other. Well, they do. They challenge the fuck out of each other to be greater, but they're also in total support of each other's mission. So the intimate relationship dynamic, I find, is very cool, or like a great part of your life to empower, because I believe it's one of the fundamental supports. So if you feel secure and safe and loved in your intimate relationship, it also helps you to make better decisions about what you're going to do with your life. If you're preoccupied and anxious about your intimate relationship, and that's where you spend your time at home and you've got a family, etc., like, how are you meant to then focus on expanding the other areas of life if that's occupying so much time and space in your mind, and also a lot of your time and space in your life, dealing with the stresses of that? So your intimate relationship can and will have a huge effect on all the 7 areas of life. right? So, but then that's that, right? So I think that there's definitely importance in that area too. What have I said?
Family.
Spiritual,
Family
mental.
sense.
Okay, family. So families to me is like just basically, I guess I can kind of look at family like kids. Now I see that family then integrates a lot of those other areas again, you know, because you can have health of your kids, and because I'm a family dude, right? So that's my thing. So that's the way I view it. So it's like how you're showing up as a father, how you're showing up as a mother, how you may be showing up as a brother or a sister or a child even, making decisions on how that's going to look and how that actually fits into your life. And I think fundamentally family, for people who don't have family, can also include like those friendships or those people who are really close to them that then they view as family. Right, so it's not just a group of like by blood. I think that family has to do more with the types of relationships that you have with people than necessarily just being by blood as well, right? Because like, how many people do you know that you go, fuck, you're my brother? Well, it's like, well, you know, like, and sometimes you can say that to people who aren't your blood, and you feel more like a brother to them than you do your actual brother.
Yeah, you're like my dad, Justin.
Thanks, son.
Hey, can you just I keep hearing you bang on the table. I love the enthusiasm. It's just not the greatest audio quality.
Oh yeah, sure.
So just do it in.
I'm just in a new setup, so I'm like, I don't even know where I'm at.
Right,
I think I keep hitting it. I've probably got it in the shit. Usually it sits like way down here, so I've got my hand space, but
Yeah.
I'm just in a different spot. So I think, so family, and then there is
Social?
We've spoken about financial, so I won't go there. I think the social area of life is one of the most, probably one of the ones that people who are successful in life spend a lot of time focusing on, but people who aren't, they don't really do that, right? And so I'll elaborate a little bit on that. So you've probably heard like your network is your net worth.
Yes, I was just going to bring that up.
Right? And so the truth is like, if you have a look at the people you hang around now, do those people have great relationships? Do those people make a lot, like, are great in business? Like, it depends what you want to do with your life, right? So I'm just going to share these things as what I perceive are important to me. But like, do they have phenomenal intimate relationships? Are they really close with their kids, as an example? Like, do they have great relationships with their kids? Are they awesome communicators? You know, because that's important in the social and the family area of life. Communication, that's fundamental to that. Actually, that's fundamental to all areas of life. Communication. Are they mentally and emotionally empowered? Do they make good decisions, or are they erratic and all over the place? You know, do they manage their money well and have investments and are building financial portfolios? Do they have some sort of spiritual practice, or are they connected to their spirituality in whatever way that is? Right? Are they mentally and emotionally open? Like, are they open to new ideas and beliefs and different ways of thinking and don't mind to be challenged, or are they closed down? And are they, you know, so when it comes to the social area of life, you've got to look at that very closely and start to empower that, because those individuals that you start to hang around with in the social area of life and start to become empowered with, are also going to be a reflection of who you are going to become. Like, I think a lot of people look at this idea because it's around in personal development, and it has been for years, right? Like, you know, look at the 3 average people you hang around, or the 5 average people you hang around, that's who you become. And I think it has a lot more to do with, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that when you're creating those relationships, you're also creating those opportunities for your own growth and expansion, but also those high quality people will hold you fucking accountable and call you on your shit, because that's the way that they live their life. And so they'll elevate you to that level. But at the same time, you've got to understand that your level of empowerment in the other areas of life will be the thing that allows you to get to elevate your social standings. Right? Like, if you look at it, people who are super powerful in business usually have greater social standings. Like, look at Bill Gates at the moment, mate. He's like one of the wealthiest people on the planet, yet that dude seems to have his finger in the pie of most decisions that are getting made globally.
Yeah, man.
You know, like, what are his social connections, right? If he didn't have a business, would he have that? If he hadn't connected with all the people around the world and what he's done, like, would he have that? No. The answer is no. So social is one of the most, I don't want to say important, but it really, like, I believe it is. This is a projection, so I'm not going to say it is, but I believe it is. If I have a look at that, your ability to empower the 7 areas of life comes from the fact that you need to be around the right people, right? And there's even a really cool thing in genetics. So they did. So I'll probably get the language wrong here because it's been a while since I read it. So basically, what they've proven is the expression of someone's genetic material, right? And I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. Is directly related to what their environment is like, right? So if you have a look at in nature, if you look at animals' genetics, so you've got the way it's expressed, so it's phenotype, it's called. So that doesn't really matter, but the way it's expressed will be expressed based on the environment that it's in, right? So the same thing is found in human beings. So when you're hanging around specific people, you will find that different traits tend to express themselves. Is that true or not true? Right? And so your ability to hang around with different people, or like those people that you want to be more like, will bring forward those things that you want to be more like. Right? Because that environment then allows that expression of your traits, actions, and inactions that you start to bring out. So when it comes to social, that's where I'm at on social.
Vocation, career, business.
Career, business.
Last one.
This is it's pretty simple what my idea of this is. It's service. It's like how are you choosing to take, I guess, what's spiritually part of you, and what's most important to you in regards to who you are, and how are you choosing to then serve the world? Because business, vocation, career is about that. It's about service and solving problems. That's it. And so
that's really it, isn't it? It's like your business is really determined by your ability to solve problems or a problem.
Yeah. And so if you look at that, that's probably one of the most spiritual things that you can do. So even that's linked, right? And you can't be good at that without mental and emotional control. Same with finances. You can't be, like, all of it. So that's what business is to me. Business, career, vocation is your ability to take what you love and find a way to serve the world with it. And therefore, when you do that, you'll be returned. You'll receive in return for that. That's why I think it's interesting that a lot of people, that's a generalization, that there is people out there who look at business and business people and people who are serving the world as like evil people. Well, hold on a minute. Like, what's your spiritual service? How many fucking people are you serving? How many people are you putting food on the table for? How many people globally are you having an influence over and providing solutions to in your fucking life? Right? Now, I'm not saying that one thing's more spiritual than the other. I'm talking here on the level of like, I guess, service levels and awareness, you know, because your service to the world may be to raise empowered children. And that's not better or worse than an individual who reaches all these people or has like a business mission like this and reaches all these people globally and solves all these problems. Not one's better or worse than the other, but if you're going to sit there and judge that, right, you've got to understand that these individuals that's part of their spiritual mission. That's what they're here to do, to solve these problems. And you probably wouldn't be doing half the shit you're doing if it wasn't for those individuals and people like them who've come before them. You know, they're really, if you look at that, like without businesses or without that business area life where people choose to serve, which in the end is an intrinsic natural thing that comes out of humans. It's not it's not some man-made idea. It's not some man-made shit. Same as money, right? Fair value exchange is intrinsically a part of being a human being. You sit down and watch kids. They will talk about things being fair and unfair. Why? Because they perceive an unfair value exchange. Look at your emotions. Your emotions are triggered when there's a perception of inequity. To believe that money or to believe that business are man-made things is bullshit. It's an expression of the law of fair value exchange, the law of polarity, the law of balance. It's there. It's a part of being human. So to believe that the world would be better without these things is a fucking crock of shit. Anyway, that's just the truth, man.
Who says that?
Hey?
I'm sure there's people out there. I've never heard someone. That's crazy to fucking think people.
Well, life would be better if it was like 50 years ago when it was like something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, okay, sure. All right. So how about we go back to to when we used to barter for cows and fucking rowing boats, because that'd be fucking great. You know, if we were still doing that, you wouldn't have you wouldn't have the heater in your house, you wouldn't have the air conditioner on your roof. You wouldn't be, you know, do you get what I'm saying? Like, it's just a part of being human. So that's what business is. Business is anything that's an expression of your service to the world, and then you will, in order for it to be an effective business, there has to be equitable value exchange in some way, shape, or form that you're receiving, which is usually through money, which is where the financial area comes in. So I think... yeah, that's my definition that's how I sort of look at those areas. I don't know if I was very clear.
That's good. No.
And then I think there's a different sort of foundational level to empower each of those, which all then sort of culminate in understanding who you are as an individual. It's a core thing. Right?
So
how are you going to understand your business mission or the way that you want to serve the world, right? And this is a different level of thing again. It's like if we go back to making money versus serving the world, it's like, well, how do you want to serve the world? Oh, I want to do it this way. How do you want to make money? Oh, I'll be an admin person. Was that the service that you really want to provide? No, but I need to make money. Okay, but you've just told me that this is what you love doing. Gotta pay the bills, man. Yeah, right? So when it comes down to it, they're all interlinked with each other because you've got to understand who you are as a person. Then you've got to be able to manage yourself mentally and emotionally. Then you have to look after your body, right? And then your body is a feedback to your mental and your emotional and your spiritual, right? Because when your body's out of whack, so is that. And when you're mentally out of whack, so's your body. And when that's all out of whack, then all the other areas of life get affected. True. You know, if you're frustrated and pissed off because you're in a job that you fucking hate, and then you come home and you've been living in your amygdala all day and you're fucking stressed out, and then you come home and then your kids are a bit ratty, and then you lose your fucking mind at your kids, and your wife's pissed off at you because you can't fucking manage yourself around your kids. And then, you know, and then it's this huge fucking blow up. Why? Because you don't understand who you are and you're not doing what you love.
Oof.
Right? And that can be biologically proven too, because when you live in your highest values, which then is a reflection in the brain of like your executive center, your prefrontal cortex, your neocortex, which all shuts down. So there's a set of nerves that runs from the prefrontal cortex to the amygdala, shuts down your emotional center. So the more that you're living your highest values, the more resilient you are to the oscillations of challenge and support. Right? But if you're living in your amygdala all day and you're feeling irritated, frustrated, stressed out, and then you come home, you can't deal with shit. You're more reactive. Right? So it comes down to one, knowing who you are, and then ways to then start to build, I guess if you look at it like building blocks and setting foundations to empower each area of life. But really, you've got to know who you are. You've got to be able to manage yourself mentally, make decisions, etc., and manage that. You've got to be able to manage your emotions, which I know I put into the physical side of things, but it's all interlinked. Then from there, you can start to build those areas of life in the way that fits for you. Now, as a human being, you will intrinsically and naturally, based on your value system, already be building these parts of your life because you will have an intrinsic drive towards them, right? So there will be areas of your life where you seem to be well managed and seem to be able to deal with challenges and support quite easily and are constantly taking on challenges and problems. I'm not saying this is everyone, but intrinsically there'll be parts of your life that are kind of aligned depending on where you're at in your journey. And so you may be showing some of these signs of like being less reactive and being able to forward plan and forward think and things. That's all signs and feedback of one, that's obviously there's something in there that's of value, and that's why you're kind of empowered there. So it's all feedback of that. But again, it comes back to understanding that core stuff. Who are you? Who are you as a person? What are your values? What are your voids? And your values, understanding your values and your voids will then make it very fucking clear what you're committed to do the rest of your life. Which then, once you understand that, you'll realize how important every other area of life is to then achieving the thing that your life is showing that intrinsically you're committed to.
I think you've done a great job of explaining the different areas and why they're important. How do you go about planning your goals for all these different areas and sort of planning for growth? Because obviously there's going to be overlap. How do you go about planning for mastery in all areas and planning for self-mastery? How do you do it? Where do you start?
Well, the start is exactly what I said before, knowing who you are, right? Because if you don't understand who you are, and when I say who you are, I guess I should just quickly elaborate on that. Who you are is your void, so the things that you perceive were most missing, greatest challenges, etc. Usually between the age of 0 to 10, 15, and look, you can have transient values and voids, which are things that, like example, you might have a value on finances transiently because you need money for something, and so all your focus seems to be on making money. But then once that goes away, you then go back to doing what you normally do. So your voids are the things that you perceive were most missing. And so the voids then drive your value now, or create the value that you have now. So an example of that, is like if you've got a void on, well, I'll just use mine, right? So like I had a void on being smart enough, right? So like I'm being intelligent, all driven from the perception of a guy I went to school with named Ming, because he went from prep to grade 1 to grade 6 into high school.
Whoa!
Right, and the moment I remember
grade 1 to grade 6,
the moment I remember feeling really dumb and feeling like I wasn't smart enough was when I found out he'd read all the encyclopedias in prep.
Wow!
So then I was like, I just had this just didn't feel smart enough. So that void then has driven my drive or driven my value of like learning and etc. Another void that I have, probably one of my biggest ones, which is why teaching is so important to me, is because I have a perception that I didn't learn the things I needed to learn from my dad.
Okay.
Right? And then I remember, then I also remember that I would look at my friends' dads, and then I would look at them and I go, oh, well, they're learning all the things they need to learn. So then there's this drive in me to teach and educate, because I have this perception that I didn't have a mentor. Although when I look through my life, that's one of the things that I've always intrinsically been drawn to, is people who can teach me what I need to know. So that's why I've always had mentors. Like through my whole life, it didn't matter what I did, I was always looking for the best person to learn from, which can help lift me up. So that perception or that void, which is my perception and my void, it's not necessarily what the other person would perceive, right? This is how you perceive things, has then driven that drive for me to teach and educate. Like even like in my previous roles, etc., like there was always teaching education components, and I always ended up as like the person who was teaching and educating. It's been there my whole life. So that void there has then driven my value on that, which then the void is the thing that drives the if we go one step further, drives the vision or the mission. Because when you understand the void, the thing that you perceive most missing, the thing that you perceive most missing in the past is the thing that's driving all your actions into the future. So who you are is, when I say who you are, that's what I'm referring to, your voids and your values. Not necessarily your vision and your mission, but your voids and your values. So that's who you are, and that will then drive all your behaviors, basically. Right? But that's a whole 2-hour lesson that we could do on values, right? So that is the core thing to understand. Then from there, you can start to build out. So the way I like to look at that is like, that's like if you look at a building, right? A building has a foundation, right? And so the foundation of that building, well, it's more the structure. So I like to think of the values and the voids of the structure. I don't want to, because I look at it a little bit differently. So there's another part that I think is important that has to do with all areas of life, and that's to do with your self-worth. But that's a different topic and conversation. So if you imagine a building, the voids and the values run through the entire building. Doesn't matter what floor you're on, what structure, where you're at, they're there.
It's like the electricity.
Well, no, it's more the structure because it's electricity is there, but it's like, well, what are all the things that are on every level that are the same?
Right. Okay.
It's like your voids and your values are the thing that hold your life together. It's like you pull out one of those rods and everything gets chaotic, right? And so if you look at the way a building's built, if you look at your life, your voids and your values are on every level. It's like it's where you're going. So it's like where you've been below, it's there, and it's what you're driving towards to fill. So it's kind of like it is the structure of your life. And so once you understand the structure of your life, then you can start to build off of that. You know, what do I want? Some glass windows? Okay, well, so we put in some glass windows. What do I want on this floor? What do I want this to look like? What do I want this to look like? So if we look at the different areas of life, once you understand your voids and your values, and then kind of like where you're going as well, you can start to go, well, fuck, if my health isn't right, this is going to affect my ability to do that. And you start to see it. You start to see how these things, if you don't empower them, they're going to be in the way of you living a more fulfilling and expanded life based on your voids, values, and vision. So the core thing is to understand them, I think. And then there's foundational things that you can do in each area of life to build off that, if that makes sense. So like I mentioned, and we spoke about earlier, the financial thing would be the buffer. That would be one of the primary things that it would be wise to do if you are looking to empower that part of your life, because then it flows on into the rest of them. Right? It's like with health, it's like, well, I'm not the health guy, right? So this probably isn't my space, but you could potentially say, well, movement may be one of the fundamental things that you want to get in every day.
Absolutely.
Right? So you could say, well, okay, I just need to get an hour of movement in each day as a fundamental core thing, or 30 minutes, doesn't even probably fucking matter, right? Like I said, I'm not the health guy, but you could go, well, that's the fundamental thing that you want to get in each day to do that. Now, if we just look at like really successful people, right? What do they all do? It's like all of them in some way, shape, or form have routine structures and some sort of automated system in place that allows them to do and empower each area of life, whether they do it constantly or whether they do it in spurts, right? So one thing I like to talk to my clients about is when you're trying to grow, like when you're trying to expand, think of your life as 8 buildings, right? So the 8 areas, and you're the single crane in the middle. And all you can do is like pick up one thing and put it on a piece of your life. If you're a crane and you're fucking trying to like put the one thing onto all of them at all times, guess what happens?
Yeah.
You know, like eventually what happens, same as in life, eventually what happens is that you get decay, right? So if you're building the 8 areas of life and you're focused on say mental and emotional only, right? What happens to these other buildings? Well, over time they start to decay if you don't have the right things in place in order to preserve them. Right, so if you think of it like that, so you're the crane and you're like, okay, I want to like get some foundational shit into my health, right? But you've got good processes and systems in place that you've put in that allow you to manage the other areas and not try and grow and expand them, but just to manage them and keep them at the level they're at. Then what you do is you just work on one area, expand it, set yourself up to keep winning at that level or the foundational level of whatever it is. Then you move around and then you focus on something else. Right, now that doesn't mean you can't have three goals at once that you're working on, but as long as you know what you're doing, I think that's the key thing to understand. Instead of going, fuck, I need to expend all my life all at once, you end up stressed out, you end up overwhelmed, you realize you've only got 24 hours in a day. You know, there's only so many decisions that you can make in a day. right? There's only so many actions that you can take in a day, right? You're only so good at transitioning your thinking from one thing to another during a day, and so you end up with decision fatigue if you're trying to do all that. You just pretty much put yourself into a position where you're disappointed in yourself because you're not achieving all the things that you want to achieve because you're trying to expand too many things at once, right? So if you think of it like a crane, and you just want to build a couple of areas at a time, and then move on to where you want to expand next, right? And then what will happen is you will realize, so say if you take the focus off, let's say health, like you're doing your health, and then you take your focus off the health and you decide to start focusing on family, what will happen is it'll drop down, right? So your level of activity will drop down to a foundational level that will reveal to you the set standard, but the set capacity that you have to deal with that, with the current way that you've set up your life to set up your life to keep that going, right? So you've been focusing on health, this is your activity level, but then you take some of that activity and growth that you're trying to do and you start to put it into family, and then you expect yourself to keep that at that same level, even though that's taken a lot of like decisions, actions, planning, thinking, emotions, potentially like dealing with resistances to doing it, all that stuff that you've had to deal with to play at that level. You take the focus off that, what will happen is you'll drop down to potentially a new fundamental level. Not a new fundamental level, the foundational level that you can manage at your life when you're focusing on other areas. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have it at that level. All that means is that there's a gap between the way that you've got your life set up, so the processes and systems that you have in place, and where you want to be, or where it was, right? So an example of that could be between here and here was that you had a coach, right? As an example, you had a PT. Now you took the PT out, and without the PT, that's your foundational level. Without the PT, you'll operate at this level, not at this level. That doesn't mean that you can't keep operating at this level, but if you just hire the PT, you probably lift yourself back up. But then what it's going to do is it's probably then, if you're trying to operate at that level and you're still trying to build the family area of life, you're probably going to end up overwhelmed, stressed out, etc. Now, everyone can handle a different amount. Everyone has like a stress threshold. I believe over time, your stress threshold also increases the more you've stretched your capacity over time, right? So I think if you just think of the expansion of each area of life as a crane, and then if you're trying to build 8 areas of life, you know you're going to be fucked up.
Okay.
You know? Because the truth is, man, it's like, if you were to track your behavior and you were to track your day, you'll discover that there's a certain amount of actions and decisions that you can make in a day before you start to fucking like, until you're capped, right? For some people that might be 30, for some people that may be 50, for some people it may be a fucking 100, you know, for some people it may be 25, right? And so you'll have a certain amount that you will able to deal with a day in regards to the actions and the things that you're doing, right? Once you start to overstretch that, right, then you will start to feel overwhelmed, and you will feel like you're not winning, you know, you'll be disappointed in yourself. So just understanding yourself at that level, even tracking your behaviors and your actions and knowing what you can actually do and what you can't do in regards to those things will help you to then empower your life even more. But sorry, coming back to that, the reason why that's important is because when you're trying to grow different areas of life, if you expect yourself to keep operating at this level, but then expect yourself to put in 20 more actions a day, where the fuck are you going to put them?
Yeah, you've only got a certain amount.
Right? And so it creates a lot more stress and overwhelm in your life trying to do that. And then you never feel like you're winning because you can't meet them. Right? Most people don't think of it that way. It's like, well, I can grow 7 areas of life at once. I've got enough time in the day. I work, and then I've got another 8 hours after that. What are you going to do with that 8 hours? Change to 1 hour per fucking thing? It's not going to work. You still got to, you know, rest, eat, shit, sleep, fucking do all that other stuff. So you have a capacity on how many decisions, how many actions you can make in a day. And there's that capacity also has an efficiency and effectiveness to it, right? So what I mean by that is that you might be most efficient, say if you're working on your business, right? Your capacity might be most effective when you're doing like 4 to 10 actions a day in your business, right? If you do 3 or below, you've really made no progress. If you do 4 to 10, you get progress. You start going above 10, then you might be like, well, then you're kind of like burning out, or you're past your capacity for that. So when you understand that, you can start to make better decisions about how you're going to expand your life. So I think when it comes down to it, what I've said is just understand that you're building your life, and that if you're one person and one crane, you can only use that crane in one area at a time, not at all areas at once.
Okay.
Yeah.
So step one, correct me if I'm right. Step one, who are you? What are your voids and your values and challenges you've been through in your life? Figure out what that core is. Who are you? And then go around to the different areas. Ask, okay, what do I want it to look like? What do I want? Right? Why do I want it? And then step 3 is sort of create a plan that's going to be realistic for you with your current resources and capabilities.
Correct. Yeah, basically that's it in a nutshell.
Boom.
And I wouldn't be asking what do I want. I'd be asking how do I what would I love this part of my life to look like?
Yeah.
Not what do I want?
What would I love? Yep.
Yeah.
Much more powerful.
Yeah, because I think you want to know what you love, not what you want. Because what you love and what you want are 2 different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If failure wasn't an option and I could absolutely love every second of my life, what would I need in that area of life?
Yeah.
Not what do I need, what would I love to be around? What would I love to do? Love to be.
It's just a bit of a, like a love list. It's like how you want that area of your life to look, that it would be most fulfilling for you. And it'll integrate into who you are as an individual. Someone who has a high value on learning and, I guess, like intelligence, partially will want to have stimulating conversations in their intimate relationship, potentially.
Dude, could you imagine?
That will be a part of it, Someone who's physically active, there's going to be wanting to do, maybe go on hikes and things like that with their partner. It's all going to integrate in, and you're going to see it. That's part of the key thing about understanding who you are, because if you don't understand who you are before you do this, you're just going to set fantasies on yourself. And so what I mean by fantasies is that the goals that you have in those areas are going to be unaligned with who you are, which then decreases the probability of you ever achieving that thing, because your decisions won't lead you to that at that point in time. Right? So anything that's outside of your values is basically a fantasy goal. Well, to a degree, like lowers the probability of you achieving it, because your actions, the way that you decide and act will not necessarily 100% drive you in that direction. Unless you've got the tools to work through that.
Or a brilliant coach.
Yeah, or a coach. Then you'll get trapped by that. That's why a lot of people feel fucking miserable in their life, because they've set these goals that aren't actually aligned with who they are as a person.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean that the things that they want or would love to have, well, not necessarily want to have, want to have, doesn't mean that they're not achievable. Just means that it's not probable at this point.
Yeah.
Where you're at to achieve that thing. There's a lot of people out there disappointed in themselves because they're not achieving the things that they want. If they just understood who they were, they could make a big difference. I remember doing, just recently, just one session with the client that I've got. Oh, sorry, she's moved on now. But I literally made her tell me how she spent her time during the day. Like every day. And most of it was being a mother. Right? Yet she had fantasies about having this fucking business because of what all these people were saying. Now, the thing is, it's not that she couldn't have a business. She definitely can. And the crazy thing is as soon as she realized, and look, it shattered a lot of the delusions that she had on herself, just being realistic about how she was spending her time and how she was making her decisions. You look at your time, you look at the way you're deciding, you're going to fucking know what you're doing in your life.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of it was around her son, like being a mother. As soon as we got clear on that, she'd been seeing chiropractors, she'd been seeing physios, all that stuff for shit in her back. We broke through that, and all of the physiological feedback went away.
Wow.
All the symptoms went away. But not only that, then she felt free. She let go of all those expectations on herself, enhanced her relationship with herself, obviously, because she let go of all that shit. But then she started making better decisions on how her business would look, how she was going to manage it, all that sort of stuff. And guess what started to happen? She started to attract in business. You know who all the business was coming from? Mothers. People exactly like her, mothers. Yeah. Right? So when you understand who you are, and your life will reflect that, right? And that's what most people don't want to look at. They don't want to fucking go, oh my God, this is what my life's reflecting. They want to live in a fucking fantasy land and think that their fucking fantasy is better than what their life reflects. Yeah. Right? Because they're fucking too busy looking on the outside rather than listening to the inner voice, but also having a look at the reflection of their life. Right? So your life will be showing you exactly what's fucking important. 100%. Right? Whether you're conscious of it or not. The truth is you can't fucking escape that. But that's the key core thing to fucking knowing that, to then building the life that you want. Most people don't want to fucking look at their life and be honest with themselves, because this takes radical honesty. And this can fucking be painful to go, this is what my life is. Not this fucking fantasy that I'm living in. This is what my life is. Then when you understand who you are and what your life is, you can then go, okay, I need to, if I want these things, my decisions need to revolve around that, because it'll intrinsically start to expand out from that. Right? But most people don't want to do that. They just want to live in the fucking fantasy, try and chase a fucking fantasy, ignore all the feedback, feel disappointed, fucking hate their life, think they're a letdown, compare themselves to others, think they should have this business or this fucking body or whatever, instead of realizing that if they just knew who they were and how to look at their life, then they could actually start to build that. You know, as soon as they love that that's who they are, then they can start to build those other things out from that, because it becomes an expansion of love, not an expansion of hate.
Wow.
Because truly, that's what it is. It's like, I fucking hate who I am. That's why I don't want to look at myself. I want to deflect it, because I want to be like this. And therefore, I don't love myself, and therefore I'm trying to expand on my hate rather than expand on the love that I have for me. How do you do that? You can't.
And I want to make money so I can fucking buy something to make me feel better, because I hate myself.
100%. Yep. And hate might be a strong word. Obviously, there's other stuff there. But if you're deflecting that, it's because you don't like it. You only deflect it because you're ashamed of it. I'm ashamed of who I am, and therefore I'll deflect and not admit that. Just own who you are to start with, and then build from there, rather than deflecting who you are and trying to build from nothing. You can't build from nothing. Can you? You don't have anything to build from.
Yeah. You need that seed. Like that tree.
You need the frame, bro.
Yeah.
You need the frame. Right? So you need the structure. And then you can go from there. Build out of that. So I think that's really fundamentally one of the most important things, is to understand that. And then you empower all the 7 areas of life from there. Right? Which will be an integration into those things. You know, think of it this way. It's like, if we just go an example. It's like somebody who's got a high value on motherhood, as this individual did, or does. Well, guess what? Well, then the business becomes focused on mothers. Business becomes focused on serving mothers, right? And doing stuff around that in the family. Then all of a sudden, that money then gets used into like expanding her as a mother and like being of service to the family through the finances. And then she's being of service in that way, right? And then all of a sudden her health becomes more important. Why? Because being a mother has like owning that you're a mother, instead of being stressed out about making money or stressed out about your business. Owning that you're a mother then allows you to then go, okay, well then my health actually is important, because I want to be a better person. I understand how I show up as a mother when I'm feeling fit and healthy. So I start to look after myself more, start to eat better, start making better decisions around that. Your intimate relationship flourishes. Why? Because you're not fucking stressed out about not being the fantasy person that you think you're meant to be. Why? Because you just show up as you. And if we got into feminine and masculine energy, even in that dynamic there, it's like, well, because she wasn't stressed out and all that, frustrated, beating herself up, etc., because she wasn't matching the fantasy of who she thought she was, guess what? She became more open to her partner.
Wow.
So it helped to expand their relationship, right? Like, so when you look at it, it's like this thing is one of the core things to breaking free from a lot of the shit, and then you can build from it. You know, so even just a simple tip: track your fucking time. Have a look at your life.
Yeah.
What are you doing every day? Be honest about it. Be radically fucking honest about it. And when you're radically honest about it, you'll get a direct reflection of what's important in your life. So if you spend, you know, if you're a mother listening to this and you're spending, you know, 10 hours at home or 12 hours at home, looking after your family, looking after your kids, you know, like the truth is probably motherhood's a high value. Mm. But if you're sitting there pissed off, frustrated, feeling like, or angry at yourself because you're not spending time in your business, or angry at yourself because you're not, you know, back at work or a career or whatever, you know, angry at yourself because of that. Well, it's not the motherhood that's the problem. It's the fact that you got a fantasy about who you think you should be rather than what's actually in front of you that's the problem. Right? Now, I'm not saying that, yeah, you know, like, and this is individual stuff, right? I'm not going to say this is true to everyone, but, you know, like, most people it is. It's the fantasy they have in themselves that creates the turmoil in their life. When we're talking value systems, right? When we're talking value systems. It's the fantasy on them to be someone that they're not that causes most of the turmoil. Depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
Lying to themselves.
I think that honesty is such an important point, because you're right. We only do things that we see have more benefits than drawbacks all the time with everything, right? So I think it's the honesty of reflecting on your life. Where do you spend your time? And also for me, the point where I started realizing, well, shit, yeah, I mean, all areas of my life are constantly intertwined and affecting each other. And no matter what, let's say I'm really good at my mental, physical, and spiritual areas, and business and finances, and then I achieve all these things, and then bang, I meet an intimate partner that wants to spend time on family in the relationship. Oh, I'm disempowered in that area. Well, fuck, I'm just going to give away half of my money, half my fuck my business up, ruin my health, create volatile emotions, right? So I came to terms with, like, okay, I'm honest. Let me look at my life. Okay, that's who I am. That's where I spend my time. Cool. Teaching, researching, writing, you know, all that stuff. Okay, cool. And then I'm like, oh, no matter what I do or how I live, all of these areas are going to either empower me or disempower me, who I am. So I might as well start planning all of these areas, right? That's when I started to really be like, because before, when I first got into this personal development kind of stuff almost 3 years ago, I was like, no, I don't want a girlfriend, I don't want a relationship, I don't want fucking kids, I don't want a family. I just want to be like a world-class speaker and writer and researcher, right? And then starting to realize, well, wow, you can actually get into a relationship and they teach you more than, you know, that's what I learned from my last relationship, is like, I learned way more from them than any fucking book or any fucking course, right? Because it's just, that's what life's about, I think, is that mastery of all areas. And when coming to terms with, man, no matter what I do, my health is always going to be there. My spirituality, who I am, even if you're not spiritual, whatever that definition is to you, it's like, if you're really not connected to something greater than yourself, then how can you do anything for consistently or with that, you know, that inspiration? You know, all of the, like you're saying, it's like, how can you say that they're all different or they're disconnected? Like, they're all connected, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they all are. They all feed back to each other.
Yeah.
And they all give feedback for each other as well.
Mm.
You know, it's like, socially, it's like, well, why aren't I expanding in business? Well, maybe it's because I'm not socially expanding. If I expand my social connections, will my business expand? Is that the gap? Oh, fuck, it is. I'm socially disempowered. I need to expand myself socially. It's like, oh, okay, well, it's like, why is my relationship stagnating? Like, what's going on here? Well, okay. Is it social? No, that's not an issue. Is it my physical health? Well, that's not an issue. Is it the actual area of the intimate relationship? Well, I know it's that area because that's where I'm having the challenges, but is it something to do with that? Well, not really. Oh, fuck, I know what it is. It's my ability to make decisions and lead the relationship. Well, that's a mental thing.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm getting feedback in my intimate relationship that I'm not making, like I'm not leading in my decision making in that area. So therefore, I'm getting feedback there. And so every area will have feedback to other areas as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, my partner's not attracted to me anymore. Well, that's because you're a fat fuck. Well, it's like, well, it's true. It's like, well, what, you think just because you're married that you should just let yourself get fat and be a fat fuck and they should still love you? Let's be fucking realistic here, not false. It's like, oh, I'm not. My wife seems to be less attracted to me. Yeah, well, dude, you've put on fucking 60 pounds. Your gut's hanging over your fucking belt. How about you go to the fucking gym and lose some weight? Right? Well, like, and I know this might, you know, like, I know it sounds funny, but it's many a relationship has fucking has died because of that. And people like go, oh, well, that's, what's the word I'm looking for? I feel like I'm drying out a bit here.
Derogatory or
no.
Toxic
Like, nah, fuck. I don't even know. I do know. But, like, they might be thinking, oh, well, that's, like, people shouldn't do that, right? Like, oh, well, that's a bit, like, people shouldn't just love people for their...
yeah.
You know, but the truth is that, okay, this is reality. Not some fucking fantasy bullshit. This is reality. If you want to let yourself go and be a fat fuck, can you really expect that your partner is still going to be as physically attracted to you if you're a fat fuck?
Yeah.
Now, for some people, it may not affect it, right? Like, it doesn't, it's not a thing. But for other people, it does. And so that's a reality that you have to face. And so that's a feedback. Oh, well, why does my partner seem less, like, why is she less drawn to me? Why are we having issues in my relationship? Well, fuck, look at me. I've let myself go. Yeah, I'm making money. Yeah, business is great. Yeah, I'm financially empowered. But fuck, I've let myself go. I've been eating shitty food. I've put on fucking weight. You know, all right, so maybe I need to, like, look at that area and start to empower myself and do some work there. Right? So they're all interlinked. They all matter. They all matter. And the degree of your fulfillment in life will come to the degree that you fulfill each area of life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's what life's about. It's like the expansion and empowerment of each area of life, right? And there will be feedback. Like, if we just talk relationships, the truth is that if you're empowered, so if we go low socioeconomic areas, right? Usually the dynamic is the husband is the worker and the mum is and the wife is the mother, looks after the family. They're empowered in one area each, work and family. The probability of them having disagreements and domestic violence and all that sort of stuff is massively high.
Wow.
Yep. Why? Because they're disempowered on all the other areas.
Whoa.
Right? The more empowered an individual or a couple becomes, the less likely they are to have violence, etc. in the house.
How fucking cool is that?
Yeah. It's all feedback. Right? It's all feedback. So your empowerment level of the 7 areas of life will be giving you feedback in regards to all those other areas. Because think of it this way, if you're an individual who's empowered in finances, career, family, business, right? And you're empowered in those areas and mentally, right? So, like, you're a super empowered individual, woman or man, doesn't matter. And then you meet someone else and then you start to try and have an intellectual conversation with them. They might look great, right? But you start to have an intellectual conversation with them, and it's like gossip, right? And then they tell you that they're not working, right? Like the looks don't even matter anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like I'm not attracted. Like that's a truth. That's a fucking truth, right? So your empowerment is important when it comes to every area, because it will affect your ability to have relationships with other people as well. So your intimate relationship will be a feedback mechanism of your empowerment in the 7 areas, right? Now, if you're in a relationship and you start to empower the 7 areas, and you've seen this, I know you have, you start to empower your life, then all of a sudden you start to get frustrated and pissed off because your partner isn't willing to empower themselves, right? And then all of a sudden you won't stand for the same shit that you used to stand for, right? And because your self-worth increases as you start to empower yourself, because you're making better decisions, you start to expand your life, etc. And so you might start to then, as you're growing and expanding and your partner isn't, then you can grow or expand out of that relationship dynamic, right? Because you no longer stand for the shit which you used to stand for. So your life empowerment will reflect the partner that you are with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're your counterbalancer, your opposite.
Yeah. Yes, they express your imbalanced parts, and they're also they express your shadow in order for you to realize the parts of yourself that you're deflecting, and so that's a part of the dynamic. They also are your counterbalancer, as you said, so they do balance parts of you. If you're a fucking overspender, they'll probably be super frugal, and that's in order for you to, both of you, to learn how to express those parts of yourselves. The frugal person needs to learn to spend more money on themselves and enjoy themselves, and the person who's the overspender needs to learn to save and empower themselves that way. So there's a dynamic that occurs in order to get them both to grow. Yeah, if we're looking at areas of life and empowerment, your ability to empower yourself will also be a reflection, or your empowerment levels will also be a reflection of the challenges that you face in other areas of life, right? Because let's be another fucking truthful and honest thing. If someone's really good in their work, right, really good at business, and you've got someone who's super fit, goes to the gym, trains, looks after themselves mentally and emotionally, or you've got the guy who's just really good at business, right? And let's say that they're both on equal par, right? They're the same. Like they're pretty much the same when it comes to business management. So you got this guy who's on point, like who's on point in regards to his learning, on point in regards to his physical health, right? And then you've got this guy. Who's the person who's most likely to get chosen for the job? The guy who's unhealthy, even though he's good at business, or the guy who also looks after his health, looks after himself mentally and emotionally, and is super fucking good at business too? You already know that answer, don't you? It's the person who's more empowered. Right?
Yeah.
And this person will scream discrimination and say, "Oh, it's because I'm overweight, or it's because I'm not." No, it's about the empowerment level. It's feedback.
Dude, that's...
People don't want to hear this shit, but it's true.
Dude, that's such a good way of looking at it.
And it's not a good or a bad thing. It's like, okay, well, I need to grow here. Now, the truth is, imagine if that guy who was as good at business was looking after himself mentally and emotionally and was training. He would probably be even fucking faster, better thinker, problem solver than the guy who got the job, if they're on the same level.
Dude, the same with relationships as well. Like you're like two guys, like the same scenario, but instead of the job interview, they go out with a girl. Who's the girl does the girl want to go out with someone empowered in business and their physical area, or just business? Or just physical, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Right. There's also like 100%. It's like there's part of values involved in that as well. But it's like, what's the first thing that any human being notices about another human being?
Well, you can see the furthest distance.
Yeah. Why? Because it's the looks, right? It's the vision. So it's like what we see. So you can't deny that. It's like your physical, the way that you look physically has a direct relationship to attraction. Now, attraction, again, is a whole nother conversation, because attraction can also be brought down to your perception of, because everyone has a different idea of what's attractive. So let's not deny that, because everyone's different, right?
Yep.
Because that's also based on tiny voids to do with relationships and stuff, right? That's why you might have a partner who's like straight, not very, like only slightly curvy, and then you might have a perception that then all of a sudden the next partner you have is super curvy. Why? Because there was a kind of void there of the curve. So there you want the curve. Right? Wow. But it's only if you perceive that. It's not if, that's not good or bad. It's only if the perception's there. So if you look at it, it's like, okay, well, the way that an individual looks is the first thing that a human being looks at in order to know if it's a threat or if it's not a threat, if it's attractive, if it's not attractive.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you're coming to the relationship stuff, it's like, okay, if you have a conversation, or if you're having a conversation with if you're a woman and you're having a conversation with a man and you start to chat to him at the bar, and you talk to him, and he says, he speaks well, and he's not like so you're seeing him from across the bar and he looks good, so then you decide to have a conversation, and then you talk to him and he seems intelligent, you got 2 ticks on the box, right? He's not like, oh no, and you're like, it's just a weightlifting meathead, right?
My name's Ernie.
Then you have the conversation, and then you start talking, and you find out that he's living at home with his mum and dad, like me, with my kids. So then you find out that, like, he's never left home, right? And you go, oh, okay, but then you find out that he's actually running a business, a successful business, and part of the reason why he's still at home is because he's been in startup, and he's just literally done his first $2 million. Right, so that kind of outweighs the fact that he's still at home, right? But if I'm still at home, blah blah blah. Oh, okay. But then the next guy, same thing. You talk to him, then he seems intelligent. Then he says he's working in a career. He's been in his career for like 7 years. He's progressing his way up. Then he starts to tell you about how like he's got maybe some. Might not be important, but he may say something about like investments, or he may talk about like his family. So all of a sudden he's like ticking all these boxes off around the areas of life. It's like that individual is more attractive than the individual who is like, I'm muscly, I'm meathead. Do you work? I just train in the gym.
Chicken and broccoli.
I eat chicken and broccoli. Oh, cool. Again, there's values elements of this, but like if we're just generalizing, the empowerment of the seven areas of life increases in attractiveness to an individual, right? And for some people, the empowerment of the seven areas of life becomes an intimidation. Yeah, because,
Well, if you're disempowered, you'll look for a disempowered partner so that you can overpower them and feel powerful in that sort of way.
Well, maybe consciously, maybe unconsciously, not necessarily true, because like, here's the thing, right? So if we go back to the very first example where I said the single areas of life, if we go low socioeconomic, where it's like finances and family, right? And then there's higher degrees of, violence and, domestic violence and things like that. It also then can be a reflection of like, he just wants someone to look after the house, and she wants a protector.
Okay, yeah.
But they're empowered in one area each, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it just it's like depends on the scope of your vision. Like that's what my parents, mum wanted to have kids and dad wanted to have kids as well and have a home and family, and dad was always working and mum was happy to give up work, so that's just the way they did it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. The person who has a goal to be, let's say, a stay-at-home mother, she's going to be attracted in some way, shape, or form to the individual who can provide her with that.
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And that could be that she's also then empowered though. Like she's got a good social network. She's good with her family. She's also good with her health, right? So she might be very attractive, go to the gym, good with her health, and she's also intelligent. But her goal is just to be a mother. Sorry, I don't want to say just to be in the sense of like it's just a mother. It's actually one of the most important roles in society, I believe. But that's how she would like to spend her life, even though she's currently empowered in those areas. Her partner may be physically empowered, mentally empowered, business empowered, financially empowered, right? But like not be as empowered, socially or family or whatever, yet that still works for them. You know, the goal is, or the key thing is what you'll discover is that in relationship dynamics, usually where you're most empowered, you'll challenge them to step the fuck up. Right? So it's like you often hear in relationships where it's like, oh, well, he's not around enough for the kids. Well, one, she's got a value on the kids, so she's projecting that onto him. And he might be saying, oh, she's not very good with money, or she needs to work or whatever. Well, he's got a high value on working or whatever, and like money management or making money, so she's projecting that onto him. Now, she might be at home not working, and he might be at work 7 days a week. Right? And so she's creating stress and pressure on a low value of his, which could be the kids and family, to get him to empower that part of his life, and he does the same thing to her. The fucking crazy thing about this dynamic is normally they'll get a divorce. Then you know what fucking happens? He starts to take time off work and learns how to become a father. She decides to start fucking working. Why? It's like, well, the divorce forced them to then do the things that the other person, which was exactly what the other person wanted them to do.
That's so funny.
So it's like, well, you make a decision. It's like, can't you just fucking decide to act that way if you want the relationship to last? Or do you have to wait for divorce in order for you to then do those things?
Yeah.
You know? That's normally what happens in that dynamic if the relationship splits. Because each individual, where they're disempowered or more empowered, will be creating pressure on the other party to get them to grow and evolve. Right? To expand themselves in that area. Right? Because, like we said earlier, you attract your opposite, right? Well, you have the opposite polarities or things in it. So, like the overspender, the frugal, right? So, if you use that as an example, like the person who, like, frugal in itself isn't necessarily empowered. They might be great at saving, right? We might think in a dynamic, oh, being frugal and being really great, like not spending any money on shit is great. Right? We might look at that, but remember, if you look at energy, the way that money flows, money has to flow to grow. And so those who value money the most end up with it anyway. And so the fact that you might be restricting your finances by holding on to it could be causing you issues that you weren't even aware of, the problems of doing that. So each end can be seen, okay, well, this person's a bit more empowered because maybe they're better at managing their money, right? But then this person also needs to learn to spend money on themselves in order to enjoy their life a little bit, right? Potentially. So let's say this person's like putting pressure on the person who spends a lot of money in order to get them to learn how to manage their money. Right? And so they start to pull that person up to elevate them to a new level. Now, what normally happens is that because this dynamic isn't understood, then there's relationship conflicts, which, it can be the way that the person communicates. It can be, there could be many reasons why. But because the dynamic isn't understood and this person doesn't grow, they keep repeating the same pattern over and over.
Round we go.
And around you go. So, like this conversation on life empowerment or empowerment of the 7 areas is really one of the most important conversations that you can have, because you'll realize that everything is feedback trying to get you to do that.
Yeah.
Especially your intimate relationship.
Dude, how crazy is that? It's like inevitable.
You can fight it, or you can realize that, it's fucking feedback. What do I need to do and change?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm fat. Well, it's feedback, dude. Like, you're overeating. You're eating too much. That could be feedback too. Oh, what's that feedback to? Oh, fuck, I'm under a lot of stress and pressure. Oh, okay, so what's that telling me? Oh, I'm using food to manage my emotions. Oh, what do I need to do to manage my emotions in a better strategy so I'm not a fat fucker? Oh, maybe I could start training after work instead of eating my fucking emotions away, and then therefore I'll be empowering myself physically, and also dealing with myself, dealing with like getting my stress out potentially as a strategy. Oh, well, is that a more empowering way to deal with life? Yes, it is. Or do you want to keep eating KFC every night and getting fat? Right? So it's all feedback. And it's all feedback for you to empower those parts of your life that you're having the problems in.
Fucking hell. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you about self-mastery and empowerment in the areas of life?
Maybe just the reason why it's important to empower the 7 areas. And I think we've kind of touched on that through our conversation and what we've spoken about. But the truth is that your ability to take on challenges to empower each area of life will reflect deeply on your self-worth, right? And then as you build your self-worth, your ability to expand and grow your life even more expands. So all the feedback that you're getting, if you've got financial feedback, if you've got mental feedback, right? If you've got, which, and I'll give examples of one. Let's say you've got critical thinking feedback, right? You're critical of yourself all the time, okay? Or let's say you've got physical feedback, which is like, cramps all the time, right? Or you're overweight, or, something like that. Let's say you've got career feedback, you can't seem to get that promotion, right? You've got social feedback, like you keep, what's social feedback? Well,
can't find the right friend group.
No, I feel like that's because if we talk about friendships, I think you consistently go through transition of friendship groups based on your value system and based on your growth, right? So you go through periods of loneliness and you go through periods of feeling like you belong, right? Loneliness, belonging. So it's spheres of expansion as you expand your life. That's why a lot of people feel lonely when they're growing. And that's why they'll go back to old friendship groups, because they don't like feeling alone until they've learnt to expand or find a new friendship group that aligns with them. But then, okay, that's feedback, right? I'm feeling alone. I'm feeling alone even with my friends.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's a big one for people. So there's a feedback. Why? Well, I need to expand my friendship group. I'm not aligned with them anymore. Right? So why it's important to expand them all and to keep growing them all is because you'll be constantly facing feedback from those areas of life, right? And the purpose of that feedback is to get you to expand and grow. That's the purpose of it. It's feedback to something that you need to expand in, which is going to push you and expand you to grow more into who you are as an individual and to expand your life more. Just like the feedback I got from the bank, which we spoke about 17 hours ago. Right? Literally, late credit card payment. I could go, I could get all sad and shit about it, and I could fucking feel like a victim. Right? And go, I'm a victim to the banks. No, yeah. I'm not a victim to the banks. That's a feedback mechanism from the field, from the field that now I want to start to play in. Start leveraging other people's money. Okay? I could go, I'm a victim to that. The banks are fucked. No, I'm not a victim to that. I now understand what I need. That's a feedback mechanism. Now, if I kept repeating that, who's really the issue? It's not the bank. It's me. If I just didn't change based on the feedback and I kept getting the same feedback, then I played the fucking victim every time. That's not the banks. That's me. I'm not fucking changing. I'm not understanding the feedback. Because I keep repeating the same fucking issue. Bang, 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 bang. Oh, I haven't even fucking got anywhere. So that's a feedback. I'm not a victim to them. The truth is that it's a feedback mechanism based on how I've been playing the game. Now I need to adjust my game and then I can grow forward. So it's important to understand the empowerment of the 7 areas of life in order for you to continually empower your entire life. Because they'll all be feedback to each other. And that's why it's important.
Well said. Justin Wiseman, thank you for your time for the 17-hour podcast. Thanks.
I don't know how long we've been on for. It's been
2.5 hours.
Oh, I probably spoke shit for 2 hours.
Dude, that was good fun. Where can people find out more about you? Where can...
So my main place is just Justin Wiseman Coach, at Justin Wiseman Coach on Instagram. That's really my main place. Or you can just look me up on Facebook at Justin William Wiseman. So I've got a Facebook page. I just don't really use it for business anymore. So Instagram.
All right. All the links in the description. If you want to follow me, it is Mitch Ping on Facebook and Instagram. Learning, Love and Wisdom podcast. Subscribe, like, share, do all the fun stuff. Let us know what your favorite clip was out of this 2.5 hour conversation. If you're fucking still listening to this, comment bananas. Just message bananas if you've made it this fucking far. And we know you're a true believer. Banana, get some bananas in you. And yeah, I don't even know. My brain's, I'm dried up.
Yeah, I'm a bit dry too. Thanks for having me on, bro.
Thanks, everyone.
Enjoy it. Thank you. Thanks for listening, guys. If you've hung around.
And if you're on video, you can see the little puppy there.